That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. I've been telling y'all, crazy stuff happening in the world. All kinds of stuff I was going to talk about. Oh, I'm sorry. You've reached the collision of faith and politics. I am Reverend Dr. Sean Michael Greener, the Ninja Pastor. TheNinjaPastor.com. You can check me out there. All kind of other places you want to check me out at The Ninja Pastor. Whatever. Do what you got to do. Listen where you got to listen. And you know, ultimately, it come like it just this how it happens. This how it happens. We get in it, and we get in it to win it. You know. By the way, I was supposed to say something when I first came on. I forgot what it was. Stupid. Just so stupid. So stupid. Boy, don't know no better. Something wrong with him. Hey, here's what I'm supposed to say. If you have the app, I'm on LinkedIn too, by the way. Somebody just sent me a message. Thank y'all. We're opening up chat right now. Go ahead. Go ahead, y'all. Get on it. Share, share, share. Awesome. Chat is open and operational, so get on with your bad self. I said that already, but chat folks, a whole different animal right there, y'all. They are awesome. Live and on fire right here, y'all. On fire. Why do I read what I type? That don't make any sense. Y'all on Facebook, there's your link. There's your link right there. Google Plus, we're on Tumblr. I've yet to figure out what Tumblr even is. I'm on Instagram too. Somebody sent me a message. They said that they follow me on what is it called? Instagram. Yeah, Instagram. They follow me, and I had forgotten. They're like, yeah, we look at your pictures and everything, and then so I remembered. Oh yeah, Instagram's all about pictures and video. I'm telling you, I don't know why all these people listen, because I'm about dumb as a box of rocks now. That's for sure. No, I'm just country. Can't help that. I'm not dumb. I'm just country. Anyhow, listen here. This is how it goes. Crazy stuff is happening. You know that. Hopefully that's not too loud, by the way. I've got it turned down. I'm fired up, unless you can tell. Crazy stuff happens. And so what we're going to be talking about today is the Las Vegas shooting, the huge crime that occurred. I just want to remind you, just so you know what they call this in Chicago? June. Now, I'm not trying to demean the number of people that were killed and injured, seriously injured, but it matches June, July, August. Yeah. I mean, this happens on a weekend. We hear gun control. Oh, wait, they already have that there. They already have that in Chicago. I'm sorry, I messed that up. I'm sorry, I messed up on that. They do have gun control. They do. Somebody check on that. Do they actually have gun control? Because it's not working. It's not working. Gun control in Chicago isn't working. Don't they have that also in Baltimore, Maryland? Got a whole bunch of murders happen, a whole bunch of shootings happen every weekend. Don't nobody ever... Where are Black Lives Matter? Where are the anti-NRA? Where are the anti-Trumpers? Get on with your bad selves. Get out in it. Get into the mix. Some reason to another, you for some reason to another just don't seem to care about black people as much as you act like you do. So we're told a white dude, 64-year-old dude, shot all those people. Anyway, don't let me get into that right now. I got to go through my open. See that? You know, got me excited. I'm all fired up. Anyway, we're going to have insider information on the shooting. And I don't mean like I heard on a website. I have friends everywhere, and they're good, awesome human beings. And this guy, let me tell you something. He's one of the best. First of all, he is the best shooter I probably have ever seen. He shot first time left-handed. First time left-handed because he hurt his shoulder. His right hand. He's right-handed. He's right-hand dominant. And he shot better than world class shooters. He's amazing. I've seen him shoot. I know him very well. He's a great, great guy. He's a Las Vegas connection, executive protection connection, gun connection, all these different things. Super, super guy. One of these days I'll have him on. But spent a lot of time chatting with him today, and he had a lot of really great information directly from people who are there, who are involved, and I'm going to share that with you. We're going to talk about gun control. Hard focus on the front sight and press. I don't necessarily do that. Of course, you guys know that you've had a lot of training is that's really how it goes. I do a different method. Doesn't mean that your method is wrong. I do on occasion use your method under certain circumstances, but combat shooting is very, very different. So we're going to talk about terrorism, gun control, derangement syndrome, Trump derangement syndrome. I have a lot of friends that are liberal. A lot of folks cannot believe that I have a lot of liberal friends. I do. I have a lot of LGBT friends too. I don't have any transgender friends that I know of, and I can usually spot that. But I do have I have lesbian and gay friends, lots of them, and bisexual friends. Absolutely. It's not my lifestyle. It's not my thing. That's but I don't spend a lot of time beating them about the head about that. They know where the Bible stands. They know what the deal is. Nobody on the planet doesn't know what the deal is on that, by the way. Come on, let's not be stupid. But the fact of the matter of it is I have a lot of friends in those categories, and I can just tell you this right now. Some of those friends are contacting me privately and saying, hey, look, man, what's going on here? Something bad's happening, and it makes me nervous, and I don't know what to do. I'm getting information from my own camp, and they're telling me Trump's a horrible man. He doesn't care about Puerto Ricans. He didn't go to Puerto Rico fast enough. He went too fast to Las Vegas. The only reason he went to Vegas is because those are his voters, and he knows Puerto Rico won't vote for him. It's stupid stuff. I mean, I'm telling you, I have people that are on him, that are in his detail, and that's the biggest lie. It's just so stupid. I say it every week. I'll say it again. He wasn't my first choice. He wasn't my first choice. You guys know that. Go back and listen to everything. In fact, I did a couple of shows where I said, look, this is not my guy. Here's why. People have been asking me, and here's why. I had good friends that were for him and good friends that were against Ted Cruz. I got to tell you, just straight up front, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think this guy is the guy for this season. I mean, I don't think that Ted Cruz would have withered under this kind of pressure, but I'm going to tell you the real truth. I don't think Ted Cruz would have ever faced this kind of scrutiny. Nope, I sure don't. He would have faced scrutiny, but he wouldn't have faced this. Let's be honest. That's true. Come on now. Let's not be silly. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, inside information about Las Vegas shooting. I'm going to talk, and it's information you trust firsthand. Gun control, terrorism, Trump derangement syndrome, and I'll probably lose all of my audience, or at least about 94% of it. If I can get to it, I'm going to try like anything to get to it. I'm going to talk about cannabis today. So anyway, that's what the deal is. And if you want an easier and better way, we're getting rants and I don't know if we're getting rants. I don't know what rants look like, but we are getting great reviews. And you can review this show on these apps, by the way. And I need you to do that. If you're a listener, get on that. Review that sucker. Give me some stars. The easiest way to listen to the show, if you listen on a smartphone. Last week I talked about, we don't have no smartphone app. All we got is iPhone. That's all we got. Is that dang old iPhone. As long as you have an iPhone or later, you're good to go, by the way. iPhone or later. So what started off, we applied for both the iPhone and the the Android. Google Play is where you pick up the app. Anyway, so we started off with it, and I was like, oh man, it's taking so much longer. It was weeks, Submitted at the same time, but Google, they need a sample of blood. They need to get some DNA up in here. You name it, they needed it. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So anyway, they've approved us, and we're good to go. So the Android app, I pay for it, so you don't have to. Google Play, it's now available for free. It's our The Ninja Pastor app, and it's free to you. It's absolutely 100% free. So if you're on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, Go ahead there now. I'm going to do a post after the show on drshawngreener.com or theninjapastor.com, or send me an email at smgreener@gmail.com. You send it there, bada boom, bada bing. You will get your link for your free app. And if you can, share it with some folk. So if you're on an iPhone, all you do is just like you did the past couple of weeks. If you're on an iPhone, just click on that sucker. It's free. It takes I don't even think it takes a minute. It's super fast. But if you can, and if you are a listener to this show, give me some stars, give me some reviews. I'm on iTunes, by the way, too. The Ninja Pastor, basically what you want to find. I'm on that. They're redoing my feed or something like that. I don't know what happened, but something happened technically, and they had to restart my feed or reconfigure. I don't know. They used a word, but the point is that they had to do that, and they did it, and so now we're good to go. So iPhone is free as long as it's iPhone 5 or later. That's the key. If you try to use an iPhone 2, which if you're trying to use an iPhone 2, we have issues that I can't help you with. But hey, whatever. So anyway, we don't pull any punches here. The Collision of Faith and Politics, Ninja Pastor, we don't pull punches. We hit the toughest, and this is me. This is who I am. Let me tell you something. The government has taught me and spent a lot of money doing it, a lot of things. They've taught me a lot of things. But one of the things they taught me that I found the most fascinating is truth, deception, body language, and lying. And I'm just going to tell you this. They spent a whole lot of money on that. And life and death situations sometimes depend on, is this person telling me the truth or not? Well, I'm going to tell you, I've been lied to a whole lot by scumbags and by people that you would never think would ever lie, but they do. Check it out. 5 stars. Thanks, brother. That's our registered nurse from Ohio with Lifesaver, first responder. They're on the scene, ready to rock and roll and prepared. Listen, if I'm hurt bad and he shows up, I look up and I see his face, I'm thinking I'm in good shape. If I die, I would have died anyway. If he can't help me, then only the Lord. So anyway, the point is lots of people lie. Lots of people, it's just a crazy situation in the world today. People are just all up and down with the lying, the twisting the truth, all that stuff. And you won't get that here. I tell you, I want friends that I can look in the eye, that can tell me the hard truth about me, or just tell me the deal. Be real with me. Be my friend that you can, you and me can be real. There's so much lying in the world. That's what I want. By the way, one of my friends and the half of the Bill and Diane team that they come and listen live, and they listen online and all that. Bill Lawhead, Bill and Diane, very sweet people. Bill had surgery yesterday, and he's doing great. Thank you for the 5 stars, but you kind of have to. You can't escape. You in these 4 walls. He had this surgery, and you guys that know Bill, he's a great guy. I'll tell you what, if anybody's ever sick, I've been an hour and a half away and walked into a hospital to visit somebody, and there's Bill and Diane visiting people. I'm like, you people are all up in the hospital. They need to give you your own tag. So you just drive up, give you a parking space, just drive up. They're awesome about caring for people. And so Bill, he had this surgery. It went very, very well. It was a little later getting started than they anticipated, which is fine. That happens. Every surgery I've ever had has been later getting started than we thought. Usually mine is because my blood pressure is deadly. So, by the way, I got a message from somebody. Let me look it up here. Alexa sent me a message and said, I'm a nurse. You said your blood pressure was 305 over 295. That is impossible. I've never seen anybody alive after that. I got a whole lot of folks that will tell you point blank, absolutely, I get it. I can't tell you how many doctors have looked at me, looked at my wife, looked at my son when he was there and going, how is this? This isn't possible. And then they go get a whole bunch of other cuffs and they get somebody else to do it and blah, 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 blah. And they're always stunned. It is crazy. I don't know how it happens. I don't know how I'm still alive, but I am. So my surgeries get delayed because my blood pressure is very, very high. Not because I'm nervous, because I really don't care. I don't give a rip. I don't. That sounds Twitter. All up on Twitter. I just got another follower up on Twitter. So I just don't worry about it. I've lived a good life. I'm 52 years old. I've experienced things that 99.9% of the population will never experience in their lifetime, probably don't want to. And that's okay with me. I mean, honest to goodness, it's okay with me. You live how you live. Upstate New York representing. Up in chat, man. It just got real up in chat. So, I just don't care. I know that sounds crazy to people. I love my children. I love my family. Love my wife. Love my friends. I certainly love my dog. But look, what's waiting for me? But I'm supposed to do what I'm supposed to do till that time comes. So that's what I'll do. So anyway, Bill is good, recovering. He'll be good. And we're excited about that. We're really excited. And by the way, thank you guys for your prayers for the Stabley family. Jill, wonderful lady, Jill and John, great hosts of our Kehala. And Jill's mother passed away. And what a beautiful memorial service. Some of you have asked me about the Campanellas, Mrs. Campanella, Betty Campanella. I have to tell you, that was one of the most amazing memorial services, funeral mass, massive Christian burial, and graveside services I've ever seen, and certainly the reception afterwards was amazing. It was beautiful, and I love that family. You guys who know me, Kim gives me 5 stars. What? All right. Everybody in chat, you see that? I got 5 stars. 1, 2. I basically have 18 stars right now. No, wait, hold on. 1, 5, 10, 15. No, I only have 15 stars. I don't feel good about that. I'll feel better about it. Let's see here. I'm getting a message here. All right. So I just had an RN send me a message. Let me see here. Says it's not physically. Let me let her type. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me let him type. It's not physically possible. That always cracks me up when people tell me, oh, look at all them stars. Colleen, you better get with it. I got a whole bunch of stars up in here. Thank you for the great dinner and the great tea. I'm scarfing up on some lemongrass and ginseng tea. I'm about to rock and roll up in here. Okay, so they just told me, this RN says that, I'm sorry, MSN. I guess that's a master's in nursing. Craig from New York. Gold stickers for my fridge. I love that. I love some gold stickers. Anyway, let's get off the blood pressure thing. I was there. My family was there. The doctors, nurses, everybody was there. I've been in pre-op, and the people are like, yeah, there's a problem. I'll just tell you this quick story. So one time I'm rushed to the hospital, or I go rushed to the hospital, really high blood pressure, blah, blah, blah. It's terrible. I'm feeling like I'm going to die. People say, how do you feel when that happens? Do you know it? Yeah. Thank you, Steve. This person says they have a master's in registered nurse masters. I don't know how you say it. But anyway, the point is, I'm in there, and so my wife she's got to handle the financial stuff, I guess. I don't know. She's got to check me in or whatever. So the nurse sits me down, says, just sit here, and, we'll take your blood pressure, whatever. She can go over there, handle her business. And so basically what happens is she walks away, and then the nurse takes my blood pressure. And when she takes my blood pressure, she has this terrible, just awful look on her face, like she's going to vomit, which I don't like that, whatever. You never want that. But it gets worse. So she takes my blood pressure. She takes it again. She switches arms with the same cuff. Then she gets up real quick, gets another cuff for big arms. And because back then I push a little arm, you know what I'm saying? Lift a little weights. So what ends up happening is she does it twice with that, does it on the other arm, and then finally she does something. I don't know what she did, but all of a sudden all these people are rushing up here. They're all in white coats. They have written on their thing, disaster team. They pick me up, put me on this stretcher, run me right into the trauma room, and start poking holes in me and monitors and the whole bit. Colleen was right there, but Colleen comes back and I'm not there. I'm gone. She comes back and it's like, does anyone know where my husband is? And sure enough, they say, oh, if your husband was here, he's in trauma room. So they took me in there and pumped me full of drugs. Nothing would bring the thing down. It was just crazy. Just super, super crazy. It was just a nutty thing. And that happens a lot. So it does happen. And if you can figure out how to fix it, man, they tell me I'm the $1 million patient. You have my kudos. I'll say your name on the radio here before all these people. So anyway, but best wishes to Bill and Diane. We love you, and the whole Kehala is praying for you. The whole country's praying for you, and we will continue to pray for you. So somebody that's been on our show, she'll be on the show many times more. She said she had a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun with her on here. She's just extraordinary. Great writer, folks. If you want to read stuff you can trust, Cheryl Chumley, great person, really super top-notch. Well, she wrote a piece, Hillary Clinton, This Is Why You Lost. And when I got somebody sent that to me today, and then I saw it all over social media, and I said, well, let me go on and read this on the air. I got her permission and said, hey, you mind if I share this with the nation? With the world. Now, I don't see on this platform, let me just say this real quick. Remember I used to say, people from Austria and people from, Ukraine and blah, 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 these different places. And I would say where they were, right? Because I could see it as I went. This system, the Spreaker system, sound is much better. It's much simpler in many respects, and it's a much better experience for the listener. Unfortunately, I don't pay. There's a plan above the one that I have. I don't pay for that. It's huge. This plan is expensive enough that I do have. And so, yeah, we pay for it. Somebody just sent me a message. You have to pay for this? Yeah, we pay for it. I'd love like anything to not have to pay for it, but I have to pay for it. So that's just how it works until we can get some folks to partner with us. But this is just how it is, and that's all right. We'll do it as long as we can do it. Anyway, I don't know what I was saying. Shoot. Anyway, doesn't matter. Let me get back to this because I got a lot to say today. The Nation, this is Cheryl, what Cheryl wrote. She's phenomenal. Go back and listen to Cheryl. I still maintain my account at Blog Talk Radio. You can listen to any for at least 3 months probably. We'll have this and that. We don't broadcast on that anymore. We just have the archives. You can download them for free. It doesn't cost you a dime. Awesome. Do that. Cheryl Chumley, really, really awesome. And if a quicker way to find it is if you go to theninjapastor.com, go over to blog, and just scroll down or type in the search thing, Cheryl Chumley, Cheryl Chumley, Chumley. No relation to Ken Chumley. Good guy, man. Super good guy. And we're going to have him on. He's writing a book on prepping, for real prepping, not, silly stuff. This guy's a real deal. And when you can build a 75-foot vessel that you live on out of steel, and you design it and build it, you're a pretty smart guy. You know what I'm saying? So, not him, but he will be on. No relation to him, I don't believe. This is what she wrote. The nation mourned, the law enforcement investigated, President Donald Trump, his wife, and his White House prayed. And Hillary Clinton called for gun control and acts on the National Rifle Association. That's the response to the horrific killings of dozens and injuring of hundreds by gunman Stephen Paddock, 64. Hillary, this is why you lost. Politics to Clinton is everything. She tweeted, Las Vegas, we are grieving with you. The victims who lost loved ones, the responders, and all affected by this cold-blooded massacre. But apparently not grieving so much that a little politicking and pandering can't be done. In a series of tweets, Clinton then went on the gun control march. America must put politics aside and stand up to the NRA, she wrote. And then this. The crowd fled at the sound of gunshots. Imagine the deaths if the shooter had a silencer. By the way, it's not a silencer, it's a suppressor, and it doesn't silence the round. It only lowers the decibels, and you still have to wear hearing protection because it's still loud enough to damage your hearing. What you see in the movie, that's not real. That's the movies, which the NRA wants to make easier to get. Now, first of all, big fat lie in that. Now, this is not Cheryl talking, this is me. You can download the article too. I actually shared it on social media today, so it's there if you follow me on Facebook, Twitter, any of those things, it's there. So don't stress. No stress here. Let me just say this really quick. A statement like this at this time is tacky at best. But you have to understand, much of the left, and I say much of the left because I have some friends out there that they are really teetering on, man, I don't like how this sounds to me. And I happen to know, maybe they grew up in the country, they grew up around guns, they know it doesn't work that way. They've purchased a gun, or they've been with someone that purchased a gun. They know you can't go in and get a grenade launcher at Walmart's. They know you can't walk into a gun shop and buy an automatic weapon unless you have the stamp. It's a very expensive, very long process, and the stamp is very, very expensive, and you have to renew it, and it's very, very expensive, and very few people have them. But as far as a silencer, you need to understand that it's not a silencer, it's a sound suppressor. It only drops its some. Anyway, Hillary Clinton said, the NRA wants to make it easier to get. Well, first of all, she knows that's not true. That's not pending legislation. And the NRA doesn't want to make it easier to get. What they want is common sense about it. And it's not even titled that. It's I forget the name of the title of the legislation, but suffice it to say, it's a Hearing Protection Act. And it has to do with hearing protection because, look, and the other thing, too, you need to understand that a sound suppressor is very expensive to purchase as well. Understandably so. They're very restricted. There aren't that many of them. It's very difficult to make them from the standpoint of to follow all the regulations, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, enough said about that. So there's a bunch of lies in this one statement, but she says the NRA wants to make it easier to get. Well, no, they don't. That's not what they're seeking to do. And our grief isn't enough. We can and must put politics aside, stand up to the NRA, and work together to try to stop this from happening again. Okay, he didn't use a silencer. She just said, imagine the deaths if the shooter had a silencer. Well, he didn't use a silencer. There's not such thing as a silencer, but whatever. Hold on, let me get some of this good tea. Ow, 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 ow. That's hot. That's hot, y'all. Anyway, so let's just be fair and let's deal with real right now, okay? So stand up. First of all, that statement, stand up to the NRA. This is me. This is the Ninja Pastor talking now. This is not Cheryl. I don't ever want to attribute something to somebody else that I said. I don't want them to ever be in that position. I'm who I am, and there's different entities to me. I do photography. I sell my photographs. You guys have seen the links. Not just, we do framed photography. We do things on wood, glass, tin, beach towels, shower curtains, iPhone, every type of phone case. I looked the other day. We have every different kind you have. We have yoga mats. You name it, we have it. Let me tell you, it's really awesome. And they're premium yoga mats, by the way. So anyway, anything that I take a photograph of that's on that site, you can get made any way you want. Somebody just said, something ignorant. I'm not going to repeat that, but whatever. Anyway, they funny, though. It is funny, but I can't say that on this. This is a G-rated program. Let me read this again. I want to have this in context. This is what Hillary Clinton said. She's our not president, by the way. She thinks that ought to be some sort of, like you should have something. If you were number 2 and you've run twice and failed twice, and you should have some sort of office, right? Something in Washington where it's like the not president, not the vice president, but the not president. She wants something. This woman is in need of something. So she says, our grief is not, well, she types this. Our grief, all right, first of all, she might not actually type this. I believe President Trump types all his tweets. I don't necessarily believe that she types all of hers. Our grief isn't enough. We can and must put politics aside. Really? Put politics, hold on. I said I would read this all the way through. Our grief isn't enough. First of all, I got to stop here. Our grief isn't enough. How many times have you guys, after some big shooting or truck running over people or stabbing or bat wielding person or whatever happens, and I always point out, there's always all these vigils with candles and bears. I don't know what it is with bears and mass murder, but people seem to think bears help. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know what the deal is with that, but I don't like that. I don't think that that's helpful. And from some of you may know, I'm an internationally recognized expert on terrorism and counterterrorism. And I can tell you, when they watch TV They do watch TV. The terrorists do watch TV. They monitor it very closely. They have access to just about every bit of American or Western entertainment that you have. So, not for nothing, but they see that. When they see these vigils, they laugh at it. And I can tell you, I know that firsthand. They laugh at it. They think that's the stupidest thing they ever saw, and they laugh because they think these people are so stupid. Now, am I saying the people that take the bears there and the candles and the little candy bars and whatever else? Although if they got a $100,000 bar, man, there might be one that goes missing. I'll eat in honor of the victims. I'm just saying, you want to put one of them? Is that what I like? It has the chocolate and the nougat and the peanuts. I can't remember what the name of that thing is. I want to say $100,000 bar. Maybe somebody can help me. That's an important piece of information. But if one of those, if I see one, or a Butterfinger, I'm going to be honest with you on that one. A Butterfinger? Butterfingers are good. Refrigerated. Butterfingers refrigerated. Yeah. Now we're talking. Anyway, don't say I talked you into getting a Butterfinger, a $100,000 bar on the way home, violating your diet. I'm just saying that if I saw it there, I might not leave it there. Although I wouldn't eat it because you don't know what happened to it. It could be, adulterated in some form or fashion. And I don't want to get involved in all that stuff. Anyway, our grief isn't enough. We can and must put politics aside, stand up to the NRA, and work together to try to stop this from happening again. There you go. I said it all in one statement. Work together to try to stop this from happening again. Okay, well, we can't work together because we're diametrically opposed. They say, why won't you work with us? We want you to work with us. We want to work together, left and right side of the aisle. We want a bipartisan effort. You know why we can't have that? I'll pause while you think of it. The real reason I'm pausing is to drink some of this tea. Which, by the way, is still piping hot. But that's kind of how I like it. Look. The lies coming out of this woman's mouth are exclusively enough reason. Benghazi. That's enough reason. She should be in jail. We all know this. And by the way, a lot of the pro-Trump people, and I consider myself now a pro-President Trump, I support this guy wholeheartedly. He's awesome. You say, wow, he's a mean person. He's such a loathsome individual. Okay, first of all, remember the video that came out and the sound that came up, him and Billy Bush coming off the bus, and they were at the Days of Our Lives set, and a star, which I happen to like. She's a very nice Jew, very Jewish lady. Most people don't know that she's a Jew on the show. She's one of my favorite characters since EJ left. EJ was my favorite, by far my favorite, for sure. Anyway. That has nothing to do with anything, but that's who he was coming out to meet. Well, he has this conversation with Billy Bush, who is, by the way, part of the Bush family. He's related to them. Well, Billy Bush thinks, hey, I could really elevate myself by releasing this video and releasing this audio. Well, guess what? He figured wrong. He got his butt canned from the job. He's been kind of blackballed. But what Donald Trump, the candidate, said, for a lot of celebrities, now I've protected many celebrities and many male celebrities that were at the top of their game, and I mean the top of their game, still internationally recognized people, and and then I've seen it. I've seen what women do in those cases, and some men, and then I've protected very famous, very attractive women who they do the same thing. Some of them, I don't want to say all of them, but some of them do the same thing that Donald Trump talked about, except flipping the gender. So, let's not get all blown out of shape. Listen to a freaking rap song, why don't you? Get you a little hip-hop up in here and listen to that for a few minutes, a little bit of urban music, and see what these people are saying. I watched a show the other day. I can't remember what it was on. I don't want to advertise it because they don't give me any money. But it was some show, some subscription thing that I have that my son hooked me up with. And they have all these different things on it. One of the genres is comedy. So I said, well, I want to laugh. And there was this thing talking about 25-year anniversary of Def Comedy Jam. Well, those of you who know me personally know that I really liked the Mac Man. He was, to me, one of the funny. The Mac Man say whatever he said, but you don't even know what he's saying. He barely even talk. You know what I'm saying? Well, come on up in here. You don't even know. Now, see, those of you who know who the Mac Man is, that was a dead-on imitation, except there had been some real foul language up in there, but this is radio, and I don't get no rating. So the point is, I have some sentimentality to that, And Cedric the Entertainer's it was his best friend. And so, as you guys know, McMahon died in his sleep. Really neat guy. But his comedy was very black and white. And by black and white, I'm saying was also very blue. I mean, he very, very crude, bad language. But he made a lot of white people jokes. And Ced makes a lot of white people jokes. Well, this show, Def Comedy Jam, is all black comedians for the most part. I think there's been 4 white comedians on the whole thing over these 25 years. There's been 4. Now, there haven't been marches and people throwing bricks through windows and stealing TVs and all that. Why only 4? Why only 4? Well, there's only been 4. So, anyway, so what ends up happening is I decide I'm going to watch this. It was the most racist, anti-white, poke fun at whites, laugh at whites, and I mean bad stuff. I listened to the whole thing. I watched the whole thing. Now, I was appalled from the standpoint that, hey, that's we're 2017 and you're still rolling with this. Every comedian that got up there as part of this show did the same ignorant anti-white jokes. It was disgusting. It really was embarrassing. It should have been embarrassing for them, but it's not. And I said to my son, who watched a little bit of it with me, I said, let's flip the race here. If these were white people making black jokes, it's over in a heartbeat. This show shut down. If these were white comedians, they disappear from the earth. They just disappear. You say, well, you're saying bad things about black people. Black people will kill them. Yes, I'm not saying bad things about black people, but I'm saying these people would disappear. They'd have no career. That doesn't have anything to do with what I'm talking about as far as later on in the show. But I'm trying to make a point here that there are so many double standards. The NRA, they have a saying. Now, I'm a life member of the NRA. They don't sponsor the show. I say their name out loud because I don't care if they sponsor this, but if they want to sponsor this, let me just say this. If you know somebody at the NRA and they need to sponsor some stuff, I'm fully down with them calling me up, emailing me, whatever. I will take their money because I'm a big believer in what they do. Listen, if there was no NRA, we're screwed, folks. We are screwed. Phillips head, flathead, torque screw, screwed. Impact, power driver, pneumatic would go through metal from 100 feet away, screwed. See, this is the deal, man. This is the deal. And what they're saying is stand up to the NRA and work together. Work together with who? The left working with the left? They've tried that. And we have messed up by allowing them even an inch because we want to be conciliatory. We want to work across the aisle. Well, that's stupid. Stop doing it. You know what the truth is. I said earlier that this shooting, yes, it's horrible. It's a horrible thing. We're going to talk more about it. It's a horrible, horrible thing that happened. Absolutely. Absolutely. Work together to try to stop this from happening again. Everything she's ever recommended would have no bearing on it. Anyway, let me get moving. I'm mad now. My blood pressure's probably high. Anyway, let me go on to Cheryl's excellent article. Unbelievable. She may be Cheryl or Cheryl. I don't know which way she says it, but it's important. People want to be called what they want to be called. Clinton couldn't even wait for the bodies to be buried or even carted from the scene in some cases to take up a attack dog stance and go after the NRA, the Republicans, and gun owners. You know it's bad when even Barack Obama, one of the most tone-deaf presidents to ever take over the White House, nonetheless tweeted this: Michelle and I are praying for the victims in Las Vegas. Our thoughts are with their families and everyone enduring another senseless tragedy. Now, what he means is another gun violence. Hillary bluntly, this is why you lost the White House. You haven't a clue about appropriate versus inappropriate. You haven't a beat of warm blood in your heart. You want to see the article in its original form? The Washington Times. Go there. Like I always say about my stuff, you have no idea how important likes, loves, and shares are. You have no idea, folks. To do what we do, now she gets paid to do what she does. I pay to do what I do, but she gets paid to do what she does. And likes and loves and shares, quoting, but attributing, so critical. So go there to the Washington Times and do that. All right. You guys know I have a friend. His name is Mike Rowe. He's kind of a famous guy. He's not like close buds, but I have his phone number and stuff like that. He will eventually be on the show. He doesn't know that he's definitely going to be on the show. He says that he will be on the show, but he will definitely be on the show. If I have to do a show at 3 o'clock in the morning, the for 15 minutes the one time he's not busy. The guy's the busiest guy. And I'll tell you why he's busy after I take another sip. Ow, man, that's hot. Mike Rowe is one of the most decent human beings ever. Seriously. He's really, really good. Oh, hold on. Let me go. I just remembered something. Let me go back a little bit. I was talking about the big stars that I've protected and all that stuff. The males and the females do the bad things. I'm just going to say this. I'll say his name. Tom Selleck. You know him from Blue Bloods, Magnum P.I., all the different things he's done. One of the most awesome human beings ever to walk the planet. He is decent and good. He's a conservative too, by the way. Just an amazing, devout Roman Catholic, really, really good man, good human being. And I had the honor to protect him on several occasions. And the fact of the matter of it is, his behavior was never reprehensible that I ever saw. And if anybody's going to see it, I would. The behavior of the women in the audience was disturbing. Now, flip that. Some of the women I've protected, some were celebrities by virtue of TV and singing or whatever. And then others were political figures, very beautiful and very, some would say polarizing, but I would say amazing. And you wouldn't believe what some of the people in the audience would do there too. Never saw her do one thing that couldn't be just folks, my point in all this is that folks do some gross things. A woman named Molly wrote to Mike Rowe asking for a comforting word. His response is absolutely beautiful. By the way, I talked about it last week. You should hear him sing. He has a very deep voice. He's a very, very good singer and sings the national anthem and stuff. He's a really good guy, and I admire that because I sing the national anthem. Everyone needs to read it, everybody. And I'm trying to remember where I saw this. I'll attribute it. If it's not attributed at the end of my notes, I will give you the attribution on social media. So here's Molly Carr's letter. Mike. I like that she calls him Mike, not Mr. Rowe. He's just Mike. He's my friend Mike. He's our friend Mike. He's everybody's friend Mike. And you meet the guy, and you're pretty sure you've met your best friend. You just didn't know you had Mike Rowe as your best friend. But he's just that kind of guy. And by the way, he's very smart, too. Lest you think that he's just some grubby guy, dirty jobs, somebody's got to do it sort of guy. No. Very smart man. He's from Baltimore, by the way. City of Baltimore. His parents still live there. I live in Las Vegas, and I've seen you here often. This is Molly Carr, by the way. Once in the lobby at Mandalay Bay. We're all shattered here. Obviously, a comforting word from you would go a long way, Molly Carr. Here's his response. And the reason I'm sharing this with you before I get into the stuff is primarily because I think you need to hear this before you hear that. I care about, how you are and all of that and your emotions. Obviously, have a counseling background, all of those things. So first of all, my son just told me, great job telling America you have favorite characters on Days of Our Lives. First of all, that's not right. Oh, you should see what my son made in his class. He's going through trade school. Oh, this is a tie into Mike Rowe. He's doing trade school. Now, I did tell him to do trade school before he went to college, but okay, whatever. Didn't listen to Dad. Dad doesn't know anything. Well, all of a sudden, Dad got smart. So now he's in trade school, and he's doing all these fancy CNC and all this stuff. He's made, the first two things he made were amazing. Well, he makes this thing for me as a surprise last night in school, which is my logo for executiveprotectionteam.com. Now, you guys know it's the same logo essentially as the Ninja Pastor. It's a lion. It was made for me by Bryn Sellers. Right? It's my thing. And so it was Executive Protection Team, still is Executive Protection Team's logo. He somehow does, and it's some kind of sorcery or some kind of thing, he somehow does the logo on, I don't even know, I'm not sure how it all happens. I don't know. It's like I say, it's sorcery and magic and some kind of thing. It's I don't know. He'd have to tell me what it is, and I'd have to tell you what it is, and it'd be too difficult to do. But it's CNC, PL, I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, he is doing this thing, and he did this lion, and I am telling you, he comes home with this lion, and I'm like, because it's a very complex logo, folks, very complex. He comes home with this lion, and it's amazing. And so he stained it today, and I'm going to put it up behind me. So when I do, oh, this brings up another thing. Facebook Live. Some of you have wondered why I haven't done Facebook Live. I won't go into the whole reason, but the fact of the matter is I've been really struggling a little bit physically. I'm doing a little bit better now, but a lot of stuff going on and all that stuff. And I've been super busy because I'm writing this book, Fraud Life. I'm doing all these things. I'm preparing to be doing a grief seminar for the Michael Strange Foundation out in Arizona. I've got a bunch of other speaking things, all of that stuff, and so been busy preparing for that. But the book, I'm a little bit behind on that because I've raised the bar on what I want to do with it. I've expanded it significantly, so that's why I've got to do a lot more of that. Anyway. So that's the tie into Mike Rowe. Mike Rowe is a big proponent of trade school. So anyway, it's ironic that he sends me that, which I think is ignorant. And yes, I like EJ and I miss him. I thought he was really good. Anyway, hi Molly. I'm not surprised you saw me at the Mandalay. That's what, we Vegas people, that's what we call it. The Mandalay, or MB, Mandalay Bay. That's not in this, but I just thought I'd throw that in for free. No cost or obligation to you. I'm not surprised you saw me at the Mandalay. I cleaned their shark tank back in 2006, and I've stayed there at least 30 times since. First of all, who can say that with a straight face? Well, yeah, that's right. I cleaned their shark tank back in 2006. Mike Rowe. He sustained a lot of very serious injuries doing what he does, by the way. Very serious. Really serious. So he's a stud, man. I'm telling you, he's a stud. Maybe that's why my initial thoughts about this latest tragedy were so random and strange. Even before I imagined myself in the thick of the chaos, as I always do, and even before I thanked God that I wasn't, as I don't do enough, I found myself wondering if I had used the same elevator as the killer. Isn't that odd? As people were being murdered in the most cowardly way imaginable, by a creature I can barely think of as human, I lay in my bed at home, stunned and horrified, wondering if I had stood in the same box and pushed the same buttons as the man now destroying countless lives and families. Since I've ridden all the elevators at Mandalay, I determined that the answer was yes. I then wondered if the killer and I had shared the same bar stool in the lobby. Had we swam in the same pool or chatted up the same bellman or played a hand of blackjack at the same table? Had we slept in the same bed? It's not a stretch. I've stayed on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay before. I remember looking down at the sprawling empty space 300 feet below my window, the same sprawling space that was recently filled with thousands of people having a good time, right up until they weren't, courtesy of a monster. Yesterday, I was struck by how unknowingly we rub elbows with evil, how we share the byways and highways with hollowed-out men and craven women whose capacity for wickedness knows no bounds. It would be convenient if such people all looked the same, but alas, they do not. They look just like us. And so we dine with them in restaurants, unknowingly. We walk by them in shopping malls, sit next to them in theaters, and maybe even hold the door for them as they smile and nod in thanks. I'm sorry, Molly. I know these words aren't comforting words. The world is as uncertain as the people in it, and we share this rock with some very uncertain folks. But we also share it with living proof that hope will never die. Take comfort in men who threw themselves over other people's children. They are no less real than the killer, and they are still with us. Take comfort in the woman who loaded wounded strangers into her car and drove them out of harm's way. Take comfort in the hundreds of first responders who risk their lives every day and the hundreds of anonymous citizens who stood in line to give their blood. Take comfort in the fact that all good people are shattered and that you are not alone. There are no words, Molly, at least in my vocabulary, to bring you the comfort you seek, but there are people among us who restore my faith in the species, even as others seek to rob me of it. I can introduce you to those people. That's what I've tried to do with my little slice of cyberspace, and that's what I can do today. The same thing I do every Tuesday. Then a photo of a dear lady. There's right in this. It's from his blog, actually. A photo of a dear lady by a tractor trailer. This is Mama Ginger. Mama and her fellow soup ladies spend their lives waiting for a disaster and tragedy to strike. When the unthinkable happens, they drive to the scene with a trailer filled with homemade soup, and they feed the first responders. It sounds like a small thing. It isn't. When it comes to kindness, there are no small things. When it comes to keeping hope alive, our first responders are the best example there is. This is a woman who takes care of them. Take comfort in her. I think that's powerful, folks. I think that's very, very powerful. It's why I like to read what he writes. It's why I love to watch him do his thing. He's just an extraordinary person. Just truly extraordinary person. Really and truly. Absolutely unbelievable. One of the neatest people ever. Seriously, I'm not kidding you. So I wanted you to have that first before I go into this, because it's going to decidedly take a fairly negative bent at this point. And by negative, I mean it's the truth that we all have to know and understand and acknowledge and act upon. It's just the bottom line. Craig from New York in chat puts it very succinctly. He says, not a law could be made that would have prevented money and motive from pulling a scenario like this off again. Powerful. Powerful truth. Powerful truth. That's why I carry, folks. That's why I believe in every state in the nation, you should be able to carry, your firearm. If you're a person of sound mind and body, you're willing to submit to some level of training and preparation to attain comfort and skill in arms, you know what? You can do that. That's easily attainable. It's not something that's magical or impossible. It's attainable for virtually anybody. And you say, well, I'm afraid of guns. And if you give it a try with a trained person who knows what they're doing, and you still hate guns so much, then don't get a gun. I'm for that. I am for that. I am for your right to not have a gun. I am, absolutely. But you know what? The safest place in the country is Kennesaw, Georgia. God bless the Georgians. The more guns there per capita than anywhere else in the country. Lowest crime rate in the country. Chicago has the toughest gun rules in the nation right now. And it's a death zone. Sometimes more than 50 people die in a weekend. Now, speaking of people dying, getting beaten up and abused and victimized, I'm going to talk now about the NFL. Now, this is a letter, and I want to attribute it as soon as I find out who wrote it. My buddy Jerry from Pennsylvania, he sent it to me, and we cannot figure out who wrote it. So if you're the person who wrote it or you know who wrote it, please absolutely get it to me. I will, beyond the quickest I possibly can, give this wise person attribution right after I get myself another drink, which will be hot, and it'll burn my lips, but I never learn. So good. So, subject, work in progress, first draft. An open letter to the NFL players. You graduated high school in 2011. Your teenage years were a struggle. You lived on the other side of the tracks. Your mother was the leader of the family and worked tirelessly to keep a roof over your head and food on your plate. Academics were a struggle for you, and your grades were mediocre at best. The only thing that made you stand out is you weigh 225 pounds and could run 40 yards in 4.2 seconds while carrying a football. Your best friend was just like you, except he didn't play football. Instead of going to football practice after school, he went to work at McDonald's for minimum wage. You were recruited by all the big colleges, and you spent every weekend of your senior year making visits to universities where coaches and boosters tried to convince you their school was best. They laid out the red carpet for you. Your best friend worked double shifts at Mickey D's. College wasn't an option for him. On the day you signed with Big State University, your best friend signed paperwork with his Army recruiter. You went to summer workouts and he went to basic training. You spent the next 4 years living in the athletic dorm, eating at the training table. You spent your Saturdays on the football field being cheered on by adoring fans. Tutors attended to your every academic need. You attended class when you felt like it. Sure, you worked hard. You lifted weights, you ran sprints, you studied plays, and soon became one of the top football players in the country. Your best friend? He was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division, and while you were in college, he deployed to Iraq once and Afghanistan twice. He became a sergeant, and he led a squad of 19-year-old soldiers who grew up just like he did. He shed his blood in Afghanistan and watched young Americans give their lives, their limbs, and their innocence for the USA. You went to the NFL Combine and scored off the charts. You hired an agent and waited for the draft day. You were drafted in the first round, and your agent immediately went to work, ensuring that you received the most money possible. Well, you signed for $16 million, although you had never played a single down of professional football. Your best friend, he re-enlisted in the Army for 4 more years, and as a combat-tested sergeant, he will be paid a whopping $32,000 per year. You will drive a Ferrari on the streets of South Beach. He'll ride in the back of a Black Hawk helicopter with 10 other combat-loaded soldiers. You will sleep at the Ritz, but he will dig a hole in the ground and try to sleep. You will make it rain in the club. He will pray for rain as the temperature reaches 120 degrees. On Sunday, you will run into a stadium as tens of thousands of fans cheer and yell your name. For your best friend, there's little difference between Sunday or any other day of the week. There are no adoring fans. There are only people trying to kill him and his soldiers. Every now and then, he and his soldiers leave the front lines and go to the rear to rest. He might be lucky enough to catch an NFL game on television. And when the national anthem plays and you take a knee, he will spring to his feet and salute the television. While you protest the unfairness of life in the United States, he will give thanks to God that he has the honor of defending his great country. To the players of the NFL, we are the people who buy your tickets, watch you on television, and wear your jerseys. We anxiously await for Sunday so we can cheer for you and marvel at your athleticism. Although we love to watch you play, we care little about your opinions until you offend us. You have the absolute right to express yourself, but we have the absolute right to boycott you. We have tolerated your drug use and your DUIs, your domestic violence, and your vulgar displays of wealth. We should be ashamed for putting our admiration of your physical skills before what is morally right. But now, you have gone too far. You have insulted our flag, our country, our soldiers, our police officers, and our veterans. You are living the American dream, yet you disparage our great country. I am done with NFL football, and I encourage all like-minded Americans to boycott the NFL as well. If you know who wrote that, if you know the name of the person who wrote that, please send that to me in a message. If you know how to get a hold of me, send that to me. And I will be happy to, I'd love to have them on the show. Really, to be very honest with you. Now, I want to stay within the NFL really quick, and you're thinking, well, what's this have to do with the shooting? It has everything to do with the shooting. Top NFL quarterback uses 4 words to explain the Las Vegas massacre. Get ready for the media to freak. This was written October 3rd by Cillian Zeal. Cillian is spelled Cillian, Zeal, like zealous, but Zeal. Every time a tragic shooting befalls America, the media immediately begins searching for answers. Almost universally, those answers involve new gun control legislation, even when the shooter is found to have violated laws already in the book. In the so-called search for answers, the media rarely goes where Philadelphia Eagles quarterback Carson Wentz went in the aftermath of the Las Vegas massacre. In fact, while news outlets kept tripping over themselves to report every political utterance of anyone even vaguely associated or affiliated with the NFL, over the past few days, Wentz's tweet hardly registered in the aftermath of Sunday night's tragic shooting. Why? He said 4 words that the media freaks out over every time they hear it. And those 4 words are, the world needs Jesus. In a tweet early Monday morning, Wentz expressed his condolences and urged Americans to turn toward Jesus for guidance. This is what his tweet read. So much hate and evil, so sad. The world needs Jesus in a bad way. Praying for all those affected in Vegas. You can follow him at CJ_Wentz, WENTZ. Send him a note. Tell him you appreciate him doing that. Tell him you appreciate the stand he took. Boldness. While all others were kneeling, he was standing. While all others were trying to rip guns out of good people's hands, this guy was focusing on the right thing. The world does not need God in the way that people think of, by the way. I don't want you to think that this is some trick to get you tricked into placing your faith in God. Oh no, something terrible happened and now all of a sudden. I don't want you to think that. It's not a trick. It's not a trick. We need God in the good times and the bad times. That's the bottom line. The world does need God in the most dire of ways. Sadly, that's the only solution reporters and politicians won't look toward in situations like these. In fact, as the Washington Examiner reports, Democrats already want to move forward on gun control legislation without even knowing the full circumstances behind the Las Vegas massacre. So in case you were wondering, no, they haven't forgotten Rahm Emanuel's maxim about not letting a good crisis go to waste. Congressional Republicans, thankfully, are blocking the reactive impulse to legislate the problem away without actually knowing what the problem is. This is what Majority Whip John Cornyn of Texas said. Now, I'm no fan of John Cornyn, but I like this. I just think politicizing this terrible tragedy is beyond disgusting, and we ought to wait a respectful period of time out of respect for people who lost their lives or were injured before we get into the push and shove of politics around here. And yet, one thing we forget is that no legislation can prevent pure evil, much like what my good friend Craig from New York said. Not a law could be made that would have prevented money and motive from pulling a scenario like this off again. We cannot take depravity and cruelty out of the human heart with a law. That's what caused the massacre in Las Vegas in the first place. It wasn't some pernicious legal loophole or some new type of hyper-malevolent weaponry that Congress refuses to ban. It was evil, plain and simple, evil. There's only one way to excise this kind of evil from our society. It's returning to the values that made our country great by making it good. And the only way to do that is to turn to God. At least Carson Wentz is willing to acknowledge that, even if the media won't. Follow this guy. He's really, really a good writer. Cillian Zeal. Remember, it's Cillian Zeal. Very, very good. Very, very good article. Short, to the point. Love it. So then there's this meme. You see memes all over the place. And I see memes. People send me stuff all the time. And sometimes I love it. This is one thing I would love is if folks would stop sending to my private, private, what is it called? Private Messenger? Is it called Messenger or Private Messenger? Whatever it is. It's called something. It's on Facebook. Don't send me videos. Let's get this around the world. Please, send this to your reach or whatever. And I'm touched by it in one way that you think I'm somebody that can do that. But in another way, it just clogs up. I get 20-some thousand emails a week, 26 or 25,000 emails a week. Somebody showed me how to do filters. And so now I don't see all of those. A lot of those just go, right into the thing. And I thank the person that showed me how to do that because it makes my life much better. But send them, email them to me but when you put something in private message, I can't tell you how many stuff I have in private message. And there's stuff that I really want to see in private message, and there's stuff that I don't. And I don't want to be offensive, but if you know me well and this is a meme he would really love, send it there. If you don't want to send it to everybody else, send it to me. But if it's part of a chain, and especially if it's one of those, if it starts with this, let me just tell you how I delete stuff. Instant delete if it starts off with, I know half of my friend list won't do this, but or, if you believe in Jesus, type amen. You guys, you just need to understand that most of that is virus generated. It's virus generated. And it generates the spread of viruses. And I hate to say it, but there's viruses embedded in a lot of things. And when you send that to somebody, oh, this looks good. Yeah, I'll send it that. And of course, everybody wants likes and loves and all that other stuff, or wows, or whatever the other stuff is. Nobody wants the hate or whatever, the red face hate. And so you click on it because you want a team thing. That's the currency of social media. But the thing of the matter is, what you have to understand is most of it is just riddled with violence. It's just terrible. And then Steve from Ohio said, I liked and I shared, and it's straight to heaven for me. Yeah, that kind of thing. It's just not that. You've got to understand when you're getting thousands of messages a day, it just clogs up the works. So anyway. So, but there's this one that I saw, and I appreciated it. Sorry, but I don't listen to anti-gun lecturers from people who think it's okay to murder babies. Now, that's from UncleSam'sMisguidedChildren.com. And there's a guy on there who's got a United States Marine Corps ring on. He's drinking from an Uncle Sam's Misguided Children cup, and he's got a Marine Corps flag, a Don't Tread on Me flag, behind him, and he's probably deployed, is my guess. And he looks like a Marine. And so he's back at the base. And so I'll just read it to you all at once. Sorry, but I don't listen to anti-gun lectures from people who think it's okay to murder babies. Now, isn't it interesting? The lecture, and I've spoken to this many, many times. It blows my mind how a person can be convicted of multiple murders and rapes and all these different things. And somehow or another, the left always wants to save their lives. Well, every life is important. Every life is important. Just, he was wonderful. He was wonderful. He'd do anything for you. We don't even believe that he did this. He's vigorously denied that he did this murders and rapes. That person on video wasn't him. The DNA, somebody planted that. The police planted it. He's black, and that's why they want to kill him. Well, he's white, that's why they want to kill him. Well, he's Hispanic, that's why. Come on, there's every excuse. That same group that's fighting so hard to keep murders and rapists and all that stuff alive think it's perfectly okay to kill little innocent babies, and I don't get it. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I really, honestly, I just don't get it. Does it make any sense? It's just terrible. But he's giving you the finger. In this meme, he's giving you the finger. So I just thought it was funny and true. Let me take another sip of my tea, which, as you well know, will burn my lips. Will I learn? No. Somebody sent me a message a little while ago and said, well, just take the top off. It will get, you folks send me the nicest messages. I really appreciate it. It's really, really nice. Really, really nice. Very encouraging. That's always awesome. I'm telling you, it's important for public people too. There's some public people that just comes naturally, and that's just part of what they do. But doing what I do, your encouragement, and there's some people that have gone to the website, theninjapastor.com, clicked on donate and given. I really appreciate that. That's just amazing to me. It blows my mind, and I'm humbled by it every time. So I think I want to repeat this. Lavoy Finicum put his hands in the air and was killed by the government, and the left cheered, calling him a white terrorist. I was involved with a lot of that, and you guys know, you can go back and search in Block Talk Radio, the archives there under the Ninja Pastor. You can search in that. I interviewed a guy who was there at the site, the Maller Range. He knew Lavoy very well. He knew that there were no guns in the vehicle because they had Mr. Finicum's guns. They had them. It wasn't a situation where, there was some. He was led into an ambush. Is what it was. It's not basically what it was. And then they found out now that two of the federal officers that fired their guns at a car that was occupied by people that had no guns, and they just filled the car. They had their hands in the air. All of them had their hands in the air, and they're filling the car full of bullets. It's just an awful thing. Awful thing. And people need to. You want to talk about the death penalty? There's some people that need to pay. So let me skip over to this because I don't want to run out of time. Las Vegas shooting, liberal response. First thing, let's ban machine guns, right? We got to ban machine guns. Why are we letting people run around with machine guns? That doesn't make any sense. What in the world? You people are stupid. You Republicans, you Trump heads. You're a bunch of stupid people. This is a bunch of stupid people. And you know, you're so dumb that we have to say stuff that you shouldn't have to be told, that the world shouldn't have to be told. Like, I don't know, for instance, how about we ban machine guns? Well, here's a news flash, smarty. Machine guns were banned 31 years ago. 31 years ago. Did you know that? 31 years ago they were banned. A little late to the party there, folks. How about background checks? Oh, we need universal background checks. This guy he was fully background checked. Every gun he ever bought, he passed with flying colors, not even a red flag. He didn't even have a speeding ticket, this guy. You guys understand that? You know, this guy, everything, if he's the actual shooter, everything was clean on this guy. Well, we should ban silencers. That's what we should do. We should ban those darn silencers, Hillary Clinton said. Well, he didn't have one. He didn't have one. He had no suppressor. Point is moot. He's a terrorist. ISIS claimed responsibility. What they meant to say is he's a white terrorist. And ISIS claimed responsibility. Listen, ISIS is lying. I don't think ISIS has anything whatsoever. Nothing whatsoever. Thank you to DJ for listening. Thank you so much, Ms. Schmont. I appreciate you listening. That means the world to me. Share it with your friends. And you can always listen on replay with the Spreaker app, with the Ninja Pastor app, I should say. With the Ninja Pastor app, you can download for free for Android or for iPhone, as long as it's iPhone or later, iPhone 5 or later. You can not only, you can pick up right where you left off, where you were listening. So it remembers where you were. Really, really cool. Really, really cool. You can bookmark, you can forward, all that stuff. And you can leave comments and stars. Awesome stuff. Really, really cool. So, ISIS is lying, folks. We know that they're lying. If you believe that this guy is the guy that did it, I'm not positive on that yet. There's some issues. But there's something that before we go any further with this that we have to clear up. We just have to clear this up. Of the mass shooters, okay, of the mass shooters that have happened, like Orlando, Charleston church shooter, Fort Hood, Columbine shooters and the parents, Virginia Tech shooter, the Colorado theater shooter, the Connecticut school shooter, the I forget what the name of that town is, and Congresswoman Gifford's shooter. Other than the fact that they all used guns, what's the other thing tying them together? The thing tying the Orlando shooter, Charleston church shooter, Fort Hood shooter, Columbine shooters and the parents, Virginia Tech shooter, Colorado theater shooter, Connecticut school shooter, and Congresswoman Gifford shooter, they were all Democrats. Every single one. How many were NRA members? Big fat goose egg. You know, who's to blame in America for all these shootings? You've got radical Islam, you've got criminals, you got Barack Hussein Obama, you got the mentally ill, you got Hillary Clinton, all pointing at a law-abiding gun owner. And they're all full of hate. You're absolutely right, Kim. They're all full of hate. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. Every single one. Full of hate. Full of hate. Now, real quick, let me give you a firearms refresher course, and then we'll move on. Those who hammer their firearms into plows will plow for those who do not, said by Thomas Jefferson. Same one they want to tear down all the things because they say he was a slave, terrible slave guy. He was raping his slaves and having children with them and blah, 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 all that stuff. John Adams said, those who trade liberty for security have neither. Free men do not ask permission to bear arms. An armed man is a citizen. An unarmed man is a subject. Only a government that is afraid of its citizens tries to control them. Firearms control is not about firearms, it's about control. You only have the rights you're willing to fight for. No guns, no peace, no safety. KNOW guns, KNOW peace, KNOW safety. No guns, no peace, no safety. NO guns, NO peace, NO safety. You don't shoot to kill, you shoot to stay alive. Assault is a behavior, not a device. 64,999,987 legal firearms owners killed no one yesterday. The United States Constitution, copyright 1791, all rights reserved. The Second Amendment is in place because idiot politicians ignore all the others. What part of shall not be infringed do you not understand? Firearms have only two enemies, rust and politicians. When you remove the people's right to bear arms, you create slaves. The American Revolution would have never happened with gun control. See, that's the thing, folks. That's the thing. These are the things that are important. Now, let me just give you some inside information. The Bible says, Steve, you're very right. Yeshua said, Jesus Christ said, if you have two cloaks, sell your cloak and buy a sword. Darn right. Now, let me just give you some background. This guy will eventually be on the show. Obviously, technically speaking, I want to figure out how to have him on the show. He lives in Vegas. I will tell you, he's one of the most decorated Las Vegas Metro police officers in the history of the agency. He is easily the finest shooter I've ever seen. The first time I ever saw him shoot was the first time he shot left-handed. And extraordinary. He's a guy I liked right away as soon as I met him. Spent 4 10-hour days with the dude. Good dude. And we've hung out since, and we stay in touch. He's just a straight-up good guy. He's very well connected there still in Las Vegas. He lives there, and he's very well connected with everything that's going on. First-hand information. He knows people that were there. In fact, his son called him right away as soon as it came out. Dad, are you okay? And because he does, he's a high-end bodyguard, and he also does very high-tech lighting stuff and all that. And so he said, Dad, are you okay? His son is I won't say where his son is because his son's doing some stuff, but Dad, are you okay? And he says, yeah, I've fallen asleep before. Been all right. No, there's been a shooting. There's 50 people dead already. Right there at the Mandalay Bay. And, I figured you'd be there. And this is something very easily he would be doing. This is part of what he does, one of his businesses. He says, no, I'm okay. But they had friends there, close friends there. One guy, right before the shooting started, and this is just weird how stuff happens, his girlfriend or wife, I can't remember what she told me, whether they were married or his girlfriend or whatever, but his lady, she started to not feel good. She started to not feel real good. And so she said, well, I'm not feeling good. And he says, okay, let me carry you on over there to the other side. And as they're headed back, getting towards the back, all of a sudden, shooting starts. And they had to scale a 10 or 12-foot fence. Because, look, there's one way in, one way out. That's done on purpose. And so they had to get out of there. They got out of there. There's several people there. There's one instance where, oddly and interestingly, a registered nurse, he and his wife were there at this country music concert, and he threw himself over her body. They all dove toward the ground. He threw himself over her body, and he was killed, saving her life. So many stories like that. So many stories. Well, here's the thing. Let me just say this about the automatic weapons. Obviously, my friend is an expert on weapons. He's been directly involved as he who renders deadly force, and he knows from whence he speaks. But he's also a firearms expert. And the fact of the matter of it is, let's just put this to bed. They weren't automatic weapons. There wasn't just one or two bump fire stocks that were, or slide fire, some people call them, in the room. He had 12 to 15 of his rifles were bump fire or slide fire equipped. Now those are legal because they don't actually make the gun into an automatic weapon. Lest you believe that that firearm is now an automatic weapon, it is not an automatic weapon. How you actuate that is you lay your finger on the trigger, you pull, and there's an actuator device that basically you would keep pressure on, and with the recoil, if you keep the pressure on, it'll keep cycling the trigger by bumping back and forth. It is extremely difficult to be accurate. Now, when you're shooting into, I'm using this term because this is a term we use in the industry, but when you're shooting into a pig pen and the pen is full of pigs, you don't have to aim. Right? That's not something you have to do. Now, there's some terms I'm going to give you that are important. Buck fever. Buck fever is if you're hunting and you forget your training when you see a deer. You get excited. You've hunted for 5 or 6 years. You forgot your training if hopefully you had some. You actually see a deer. You all of a sudden start, like there's 3 or 4 deer, and you just fire into where the deer are. You're not aiming. You're not thinking about background, what's behind the deer, what's in front of the deer, what's between you and the deer. Very important. Duck blindness. You've heard that term, duck blindness, maybe. That's when you flush out an entire flock of ducks. You shoot into the flock. Now, you injure some, but you recover few. If you shoot in individual birds or individual deer, instead of firing randomly, you make your shots count. You bag more game. Now, I don't know if this guy was a hunter. I don't know if he was or he wasn't. I'm not absolutely positive based on, I've seen people up close and personal blow their heads off. I've seen them put a barrel into their mouth and pull the trigger. And I can just tell you, at very close range, I've seen this. And I can just tell you, their heads don't look like that guy's head. You evacuate the brain matter. You evacuate major portions of the skull. So if you look at the picture of the guy on the ground, there would be much more mess there than that. Let me just say that. I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I want to call it like I see it on the areas where I have an issue. So the bump fire, there was no automatic weapons deployed, so let's stop demanding that. Now, of course, they found out this was a bump fire. Oh, well. By the way, yes, Kim in chat has asked, would you please explain to people that AR does not mean assault rifle, please? And that is exactly 100% correct. It doesn't mean assault rifle, it means Armalite rifle, which is the company Armalite made the first one, and so they, that's what it's called. So just want to give you that. Thank you, Kim. That makes a lot of sense. There was AR-10s and AR-15s there. AR-10 is a .308 caliber, and the AR-15 is a .223 or 5.56. So he could fire because of these bump fire. By the way, let me give you an update on the security guard. The security guard that came up, there's a lot of bad information going around. Why did it take them so long to get to them? And all this stuff. It's something weird about that. There's stuff that's weird about this, and there's stuff that's not. Having been a police officer, having been in executive protection, having done these things, they've been around, shootings and this, that, and the other. You learn what is real and what's not, what's just absolute pablum and silliness and what's not. So the security guard, by the way, that got shot, a friend of my friend's, checked on him. He's good. He's good. He's going to be okay. He actually didn't get shot through the door, but when the guy shot, or whoever was on the other side, shot through the door, he got hit by fragments of the door. So still bad. I mean, you don't want that coming at you. You don't want that. Getting shot sucks. I can tell you firsthand. It sucks. It's not fun. And as a result, he had to go to the hospital. But he's going to be fine. He is absolutely going to be fine. I want to also say this really quick about bump fire stocks and slide fire stocks. Look, they can fire 100. You can put a 100 or 60 round magazine on there. They're very unreliable, by the way. And so a lot of people are saying, well, why did he have two? Let me resolve this issue first, because if you've ever been to the Mandalay Bay, it is an interesting place. It's a beautiful place, really, really swank and all that stuff. But how it's laid out, and if you look at photographs from the killing area, you look at those photographs and you look up at where the windows are busted out, you will see it looks like they're very far apart. And people have said, well, a 64-year-old man, an accountant, he's retired, how the heck is he running back and forth between the two? What's up with that? How in the world? Well, it's an optical illusion because there's a bend to the room. It's a 2-room suite, first of all. But there is a bend there that makes it appear you can't see the bend, but it's 20 feet apart, not even 20 feet apart. It looks like from the outside that it's this huge distance apart, but it's not. It's you go through one room and go through a doorway, and there's the other room. But people have said, well, why, if there weren't multiple shooters, why were there multiple holes? Why is he staging guns? Well, there's an easy explanation for that, and that explanation makes a lot of sense, and that is this. If you are going into a mass shooting incident, you're going to perpetrate this. And you've got a crowd of 23,000 people there. It's a spray and pray. You're just firing rounds into the crowd, right? You're just firing rounds into the crowd. And by the way, these rounds, some folks question why they shut down the strip. These rounds were going everywhere. They're going all over the place, folks. Not just into this crowd. They were hitting everywhere. And I'll explain why in just a second. But the point of it is, they say, you can't be accurate with a bump fire. This is the next thing they're saying is this is the big conspiracy. So how's a guy going to get, 19 rifles up there and all these rounds of ammunition? That's hundreds of pounds, 400 pounds worth of gear. And he's going to be in there and nobody's going to notice? Let me tell you something. I've spoken at conferences at big places. I've been to really big places while big things were going on there. And people regularly get on the elevator with these little carry things, carts, these little Bellman carts, and they're loaded for bear. They've got displays for conference. Let's say they're a vendor. Well, they're not leaving that stuff lay around. Some of that stuff is tens of thousands of dollars. Some of it's very high tech. They're not leaving that lay around. They're just not going to do it. They're just not going to do it. They're not leaving it laying around. Where are they going to put it? They're going to put it in the room. That's exactly right. So, all that said to say this, you need to understand that part of it is not out of the ordinary for a convention city. And let's face it, Las Vegas is a convention city. So that's not out of the ordinary. You're just not in a situation where you're going to lose me on that thing. You say, well, wouldn't anybody have noticed? That guy's been in Mandalay Bay countless times. The guy is a big spender, high roller. He's been there lots and lots of times. Not at all out of the ordinary. Now, let me go back to the guns. Why would he have multiple guns and gun nests? People have used that term. Why would he have both? First of all, let me just say this about that. Having two places to shoot from, if one gun jams, now he's got 19 rifles. When one firearm jams, and it's going to jam because you're using a bump fire, which they suck, they're junk. Yeah, I always laugh at people when they show me, I got this bump fire. I can fire up to 100 rounds a second, super fast. And I just have to laugh. And, you're Ricky Combat, all right. You're going to blow through $1,000 worth of ammunition, and you're going to hit nothing but innocent bystanders, and you're going to wreck your firearm while you're at it. But the bottom line is you want to change spaces. You don't stand in the same spot and shoot. If you're the good guy and you're getting shot at, you want to change locations as much as you can. If you're moving, you're not getting shot. It's harder to hit a moving target. And so he's back and forth figuring, they're going to eventually track the muzzle flash. So he goes to the other window, and he goes back to the other window, and as a weapon, he discharges all the ammunition that's loaded. Maybe he might throw a magazine in there, and then he runs back over to the other window and starts shooting people. That's just reality. That's where it just starts shooting people. Right? It's faster to do that than to reload. Now, I want to also point out it's about a 45-degree angle from where he was. He's over 300 feet up. It's about a 45-degree angle. He's aiming down. There was, the sheriff said, now, he came out and he was, pretty articulate and whatever, but a lot of what he said initially and then ongoing after the first couple, he got her dialed in pretty good, but he made a lot of just flat-out misstatements. They were just incorrect. And one of the things he said was he had tripods. Well, he didn't have a tripod. When this rich guy goes to the gun shops, and he went to many of them, many that my friend has been to. My friend knows the people that sold weapons to this guy. And you say, well, how could they do that? Well, guess what? Hindsight's 20/20, brother. Guy doesn't come in and present as a crazy guy. He just presents as a rich guy who passed every background check there is. Oh, we need to make him harder. Why? Why? The guy didn't even have a speeding ticket. He'd never been put in a mental institution. Why? What would ever show up as a problem? He had a bipod, folks. He had a bipod mounted to the front of the weapon. They're cheap, they're basic, and at a 45-degree angle, guess what? He quickly learned, well, this bipod sucks. It doesn't work. Why? Because it's too great of an angle. It doesn't work on that great of an angle. It works if you're in prone position shooting pretty much straight out, but when you're working on a downward angle of 45, come on, folks, it's simple math. I suck at math, but I know enough to know that. So there's that, the tripod thing and the gun nest. Yes, he put things up so that he could be elevated and that he could fire. He had multiple firing locations. Now, I'm not saying that this is how it's all going to shake out, but my friend has verified all this stuff. He knows it for sure. It's not a guess. So then, let me address this really fast because people are, you're exactly right, Steve from Ohio. Anything over 15 degrees angle, it's useless. It's a waste to even have. So the other thing, the video or the pictures that came from the scene. There were a lot of people that talked about why isn't there more brass in there. And I'll tell you the truth, when I first looked at it, I thought there would be way more brass in there. Now, let me share something with you. If you've ever been in a situation where you've got your life depends on moving and shooting, tell you what you don't want to do. You don't want to be running over a bunch of brass, a bunch of expended brass. First of all, it comes out of there hot. It's going to be a very hot and very smoky place. Since I'm talking about smoke, that's how the police figured out where the guy was. When he broke out the windows, the bellmen downstairs were like, holy crap, there's glass flying down on us. And so they notified some people, but they think a window's just gotten broken. It's not the first window that got broken. When you're that high up, you're 32 floors up, 300 feet up. Hold on, let me take a sip of coffee or sip of tea. I got dry from talking. Youch, that's still hot. So, when you're that high up, look, the sounds initially probably he had his barrel back behind the window, so the sound is staying somewhat in the room. But then when you push that barrel, that muzzle, outside of the break of where that window is, and you're outside, that's when the cracks are heard really loudly. But you need to understand that Las Vegas is a bunch of big buildings that have all kinds of crazy angles to them. So the sound is bouncing off everything. You may think that you're hearing a gunshot. You're hearing an echo of a gunshot or an echo of a gunshot. It's the sound is bouncing around and bouncing around. Yes, it's very loud. It's extremely loud. So then all of a sudden the guys, the bellhops, we got a problem. There's glass. And so they're trying to figure out, well, where is this coming from? And then all of a sudden the shooting, people hear the shooting. Now, this guy knows personally the people that were directly adjacent to the shooter. Where the shooting was coming from, directly adjacent to them. They were in the hotel, literally directly adjacent to the shooter. And they called and were saying, what's going on? What's going on? Come on now. It's got something bad going on. Well, the other thing, too, is there's a lot of smoke that builds up. I don't know if you've ever fired a firearm like that. There's a lot of smoke. And maybe initially he planned to set up with his bipod and his platform to have the barrel outside, and so the smoke's going to be outside. And a lot of the brass expended outside. That's what the point I was getting to. A lot of the brass expended to the outside, and so that's why he could run back and forth, and then there wasn't a bunch of brass. Look, I'm not trying to refute. If you want to be a conspiracy theorist on every daggone thing under the sun, I'm not going to try to refute that. But I'm telling you, as someone who's been in situations where I could testify to what really happens versus the crazy crap that comes out on the internet, keyboard commandos, not at all reality. It's not reality. It's look, you can imagine that, but it's not reality. Been there, done that, not reality. So let's dispel that. So the next thing that I want to share with you is, look, there's two things would have happened if he did have a suppressor, by the way. Number one, he would have melted the barrels. Why would he have melted the barrels? He would have melted the barrels simply because a suppressor, instead of allowing the gases to go directly out, directly out the barrel and ventilate the barrel and keep the barrel cool, it retains the gases, it cycles them and dispels them or dissipates them. And so that temperature, not only is the suppressor very, very hot, but the barrel firing at that cyclic rate would be unsustainable. The barrel would melt. It would turn bright red and then it would melt. And so let that go. I mean, it looks good on television, but it's not reality. So the other thing too, and this is important, and thank you, Steve, for reminding me of this, but most ARs send the brass forward. There's a giant hole in front of them, and most of the brass, even if he's back a little bit, that is going to go forward. So it's going to go out the window. Most of it's going to go out the window, because they even reported saying, yeah, there's hot gun shells coming out of the windows and landing on people down here. So you're putting these things together. There's sounds everywhere. They think they have the police when they're coming. They're coming into a situation where rounds are hitting everywhere, as you see from the body cameras of the people that weren't even, the police officers that weren't even to the Mandalay Bay or where the people were going down. They were well to the side of that and in front of it. That's what I'm saying. That's why they shut the strip down. They said, people are saying, oh, that's because they wanted to have an explosion. Listen, there was a multiple event going on, and there were shooters in other places, and people said there was a bomb found at the Luxor, and yada, yada, yada. Listen, when something like this happens, I am telling you, it is buttholes and elbows. I'll just put it that way. People are running. People are diving for cover. The couple that my buddy knows, they jumped this fence and hid behind porta potties. Now, porta potties have never been known to stop a bullet, but you figure if he can't see me, he can't shoot me. So that's something. If you can't get to any other hard cover, then you get behind, whatever you can. So then, moving forward, we've covered the how could he get all that stuff up there. Don't give yourself another thought on that. A few cartloads, and he's got all that stuff up there. There were 10 suitcases, folks. You can fit 4 suitcases, one row of 4 normal-sized suitcases on one of those carts, right? And then if you double that up and you're willing to put a couple more on laying sideways, you can get 2 or 3 more on there. It's just bottom line. All you got to do is tip the bellman. Bellmen push heavy stuff all the time. It's going to happen. So we've dispelled that. All that stuff. You're exactly right. Concealment versus cover. Steve from Ohio. Concealment versus cover. Sometimes if you can't get cover, cover is what would stop a bullet. Concealment is what keeps you from being seen. You go for what you can get. And if you've got neither concealment versus or cover, you've got to move. You've got to move randomly, unpredictably, and quickly. Now, so there's that. The brass expending outside while there wasn't so much brass on the floor. The AR pushes it forward, typically by design, pushes the round forward a little bit, and not for nothing, but he was close enough to the edge of that window that many of the rounds would go out the window. Why were there pauses? Why were there pauses in between? This is the other big thing. Why are there pauses? And why did it sound like there was multiple people shooting? Look, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you have been the focus of machine gun fire or semi-automatic firing, or somebody can pull the trigger fast. Listen, and especially when there's buildings around, have you ever been in a situation? Let me give you an example. Those of you who have ever gone to an indoor gun range, right? An indoor gun range. Well, guess what? When you're the only one in the gun range, even though you're the only one in there, it sounds like there's multiple people in there firing at the same time you are. And then you go up between that little lane divider, even with your hearing protection on, it's loud. It's loud. The sound bounces off the concrete walls. It bounces off the end. It bounces back to you. It's very loud. Put 3 or 4 people in there firing single rounds, normal cyclic rate. And then you've got, holy crap, there's 150 people in here shooting at me. That's just what it's like. Now you go out into the real world, urban setting, and there's people shooting at you from a high place. Newsflash, you can hear the rounds hitting the ground, going through people, going through all kinds of things. Now, I'm not saying that lightly, going through people, but when a round hits a human being, I'm telling you, it makes a sound, and it's a loud sound. I am sorry to tell you, it sounds very much like a baseball bat hitting a watermelon. And it's terrible. And people say, well, some of the people died of relatively minor injuries. Why'd that happen? Why'd they stay there? When your body is hit by a round going 3,000 feet per second, let's say, or 2,500 feet per second, and it's lead and it's raining down on you at a high rate, and it hits your body, your heart's already beating faster than it's ever beaten in your life. Those people, other than the veterans and the police officers, never experienced gunfire. So when that happens, for people that haven't experienced that, it's crazy town. You don't know what to do. Is it fireworks? Is this part of the show? Let's dispel this right now. Let's stop thinking that it's fireworks. Now, why would it be fairly reasonable for people in Las Vegas, Nevada, to assume it might be fireworks? Because they have a lot of fireworks there. It was dark. There's all kinds of celebrations going on. No reason to believe it's not fireworks, except for it wasn't fireworks and there's people exploding. There's blood everywhere and people are dropping and screaming. Why couldn't you hear the dropping and screaming? Because there was loud music playing. And listen, Jason Aldean turned. My buddy is in with these people, and Jason Aldean turned. And when he ran off stage, the lighting guy cut the lights off to the stage. Well, we don't know if he knew what was happening or not, but we do know that when you leave the stage, you flip the lights off. Well, let me tell you, there'd be more people dead if he had not done that. If he hadn't hit that master power switch and shut those lights off, there'd be more people dead. Because guess what happened when the lights got shut off? Can't see. He can't see what he's shooting into, so he's just shooting in general. And as he realized that bipod was worthless, he's then hand-holding. You know what? When you shoot for 19 minutes at that cyclic rate and you're 64 years old, not in the best shape ever, newsflash, you're all over the place. If you're now standing when you anticipated you'd be laying, and the hardest thing you had to do was press a trigger and pull the bump fire back into you, and load a magazine here and there. When that's the hardest thing you anticipated doing, and now all of a sudden you're standing there firing, you're going crazy. Your angle of fire, the decline of the round, all these different things are happening. Rounds are going everywhere, folks, and I'm telling you, the place was full of bullet holes. You'll be shocked where they find bullet holes. People say, oh, there was a second shooter, see? Now, in fairness, now I'm going to say this, and I want folks to understand that there weren't 527 people shot. Ponder that while I take a sip of very hot tea. The person earlier wanted to know, why don't I take the lid off and let it cool off? Because I would spill it. That's why. So there's the deal, folks. People will say those things, and when those things come out, you remember the Ninja Pastor said, this is what happened. This is the deal here. 500 and some people were not shot. There were 120 some people who sustained bullet wounds. The rest of them, now you're not going to hear this on television, because nobody wants to say this. The left-leaning press, and by left-leaning I mean all the way left, virtually laying down to the left, They want you to believe that he shot 500 and some people in this event. You understand that, right? They want you to believe that because they want you to believe that he was successful in actually shooting 500 people. Well, he wasn't. It was 100 and some people, 120 some people. Those people actually got hit. Let me read you some medical stuff from Steve, who happens to be an RN and an ENT. Move into cover one way and out of it another. Move to another window. Changing angle of attack and cover. Less brass mess. Less smoke, plus ventilation. For smoke to exit the room, you need 2 holes for ventilation. That's exactly right, folks. What eventually caught the guy? His smoke detector went off. That's how they pinpointed where it was. But guess what? That smoke detector didn't go off right away. As the smoke in the room from the gunfire, built, that's what happened. That's how they knew what room exactly it was. Now, there's all these things. So I want you to understand that there is an agenda at work here. The anti-gun people, the left, they want you. Let me read to you something that my good friend Dave Perkins, you guys know, Dave and I are friends. He's a great guy. He used to be on The Blaze. He's radio personality from, 30 years. World traveler, brilliant guy. Love the dude. He's been on the show many times. Jerry from Pennsylvania and I have been with him different things and doing different things. The leadership of the left is, for the moment, pleased that a bunch of country fans and Trump voters got shot up. I'm not naming names, but you and I both know the sense of schadenfreude is out there. It is. They are pleased. There are plenty among them who believe these people deserved it. But in the longer term, they're terribly disappointed it wasn't the crowd at a rap concert or a ponytail hippie folk concert, because what they want to see is a mass shooting from the right, and there just aren't any. Hodgkinson, 66 years old, very publicly hard left and all over social media, and they couldn't scramble to erase his footprint before the public found it. Now, let me say this. Do you remember who Hodgkinson is? It'll blow your mind. He's the guy that shot up that Republican baseball team, Republican congressmen and senators preparing for the charity baseball. Yeah, you don't remember his name. You know why? Because he's a hard leftist. They tried to erase his footprint before public found it. His wacko lefty positions were impossible to hide. He shot at Republicans because they were Republicans. This 64-year-old Paddock guy lived a cagey, secretive life. He didn't do social media. Hard to pin down, even by people who knew him. He was raised by a con man and a bank robber, so staying under the radar would have been something among his skills he was exposed to at a very early age. So the idea that he was a garden variety wacko lefty who thought Trump voters deserved to die has not gotten a lot of public discussion yet. And this is Dave goes on to say, Dave Perkins, but I predict that it will turn out to be his motivation. The simplest answer is usually the right one. No conspiracy theory needed. He was a man on a mission. Why a suicide mission? Maybe gambling debts. Maybe just a chance to go out in a blaze of glory firing at Trump voters. Maybe something medical had come onto his radar screen and he was acting on a shortened time frame. Who knows? One thing is certain. They got all his computer stuff a couple of days ago, and somebody somewhere now knows what he was writing and to whom. It's a matter of time before we know. But it might be a lot of time. And if he's another wacko lefty, another frustration to the desires of the left to discover, at long last, a Tea Party shooter. You see, that's my guess. Your view may vary. Seems to me the first step in stopping mass shootings is banning all registered Democrats from purchasing weapons. Just saying, amen, brother. Always a source of wisdom, that Dave. Always a source of wisdom. See, here's the thing, folks. You absolutely have to understand this, and I got to be clear on this. There's information that comes out. When these things happen, there's information that comes out that is just crazy town. It's just so nuts. It's just so nuts. People say stuff that it just makes no sense on the left and on the right. Recognize this. If this guy was a Republican, if he was a Tea Party guy, we'd know it by now. If this guy was an NRA member, we'd know it by now. My friends, make no mistake, we'd know it by now. We would absolutely, by now, know. That's reality. It's just like the Russian probe, folks. Look, folks, if President Trump or his immediate team, there was any reason to believe that he was in any way colluding with the Russians, any way involved, newsflash, you'd know it by now. You'd know it. It would be beyond doubt. See, that's reality, folks. Think before you speak, think before you type. That's very important. Very, very important. My friends, there's a lot of people, and my buddy, he's very well connected. A lot of people going on about how good a job the sheriff did initially, the chief of police there in Las Vegas. And it's a difficult thing, and I'm not going to second guess him, but he's not really highly loved by his guys. He's not very well liked. He's very political. He's very well educated, but he's not very well liked because he's not really a cop's cop. But here's the thing, friends. He got a lot of stuff wrong initially. Well, she's the girlfriend. Yeah, well, we talked to her and it's fine. Everything's fine. We're not even. She didn't know anything about it. You gotta be kidding me, man. Seriously? You don't make a sweeping statement like that early in the game. We're talking hours in. You don't make a sweeping statement like that. Very, very reasonable to believe that she knew something. She knew for sure more than nothing. Let me address this really quickly. All of the late night comedy people, the comedians. I don't want to call them a comedian. They're comedy people because most of them are not very funny. I just don't think they're very funny. You hear them going on and on about you got to do something. Come up with a plan. Present it to me. And then let's look at facts. Let's look at facts and let's determine whether doing what you're recommending to do would have stopped this or would stop anything else. We need universal background checks. We have them. We need to close the gun show loophole. There is none. That's a lie. Gun show loophole is a flat-out lie. It's not real. It's a unicorn of the left. They say that, and people listen, well, I think we should do that. There shouldn't be loopholes in gun laws. I don't think that. Why? Who made that right? Who made that legal? That's kind of sketchy. Right? They say those things, and then sometimes we'll repeat those things because we think, well, that makes sense. That's common sense. We need common sense gun laws. We need common sense gun laws, folks. Common sense. Right? They put common sense first so that you say, no, we don't. Well, you're not for common sense. Who's not for common sense? Only dumb people are not for common sense. Co-option of the vernacular. Don't let them do it to you. Don't fall victim to it. Just don't fall victim to it. These people will say stuff and it will seem like it makes a lot of sense, but you know what? It doesn't make any sense at all based on the facts. Jimmy Kimmel, God bless him. He has a child. Go lay down, buddy. Go lay down. Not time yet. He has a child that has some special needs, and Jimmy Kimmel is a multimillionaire. Let me just tell you this. Jimmy Kimmel has very, very good insurance. Very good insurance. He is an employee, and he has very, very good insurance. Jimmy Kimmel is also a mega millionaire. He makes millions of dollars a year to do the show that he does, plus he gets endorsements and other stuff. Makes a lot of money. My friends, I don't have health insurance. I don't make any money. I'm not famous. I don't have a pile of money somewhere. And I don't have health insurance. And the reason I don't have health insurance is because of Obamacare. Now, this guy's railing against getting rid of Obamacare, repeal and replacing. I don't even want to replace it. Let's go back to how we were. I had health insurance before all this mess, and I'd like to have it again. They're filling your head full of crap. Because I'm going to tell you something. None of what they say is true. It's demonstrably, provably a lie. And they know it's a lie. Talking points. That's all they want. So when you come out after a shooting like this and you say, listen, we have to stop the hate, good luck with that. Maybe we order some pink t-shirts with "Stop the Hate" written on them. Think that'll work? We think that'll work? I don't think it will. In fact, I know it won't. Shirts don't stop bullets. No matter what you write on them, no matter what color they are, they don't stop bullets. You're right, Steve. I cannot live on my white privilege. I lost my card and it hasn't worked for me. It just hasn't worked for me. You see, you can live in the unicorn world if you want to. Hey, if you want to, you can do that. You can. You can live in that dream world and you can pretend like that's how. Why wouldn't we want it to be this way? Why wouldn't anybody in their right mind want it to be this way? Friends, I would love for it to be that way. I would love for it to be this sweet sunshine and lollipops. I'd love that. I would. Who wouldn't? I'd love for it to be that way. It'd be so much easier. Being a war fighter is hard. Fighting the good fight and fighting media and being out there and debating and all that stuff, it's hard. It's difficult, man. People want to kill you. I get death threats all the time. All the time. Fighting the good fight is hard, man. Putting yourself out there, it's difficult. It's risky. And somebody's got to do it. You work for peace and you prepare for war. I would love for the world to be like these snowflake people who live in a not even an amphitheater, but just a echo chamber of people telling them how great they are, how smart they are, how talented they are. These people haven't been around guns. They might know somebody that knows somebody that has a gun. They don't know anything about hunting. They don't know anything about surviving. God forbid you ever tell them, look, the next 24 hours, you're not going to be able to go to a bodega or a shopping center or have an assistant bring you a sandwich. God forbid, 24 hours. They'd die. They'd lose it. They'd lose it. They wouldn't know what to do. They'd get on their cell phone and they'd try calling a bunch of people, but the reality of it is, if you shut off their cell phone, now we're talking real trouble. Now you're talking real trouble. 24 hours, folks, they'd lose their minds because they live in an echo chamber. Everybody tells them how great they are. They tell them how smart they are. Tell them how good looking they are. Listen, my buddy Craig, he has livestock and different things there. You tell him to come on over. Hey, come on, we got to kill, and then dress and take care of some livestock here. Change them from pets to food. They'd lose their minds. Oh my God, you can't do that. You're right, Craig. They can't even grow a tomato. And meanwhile, they're telling us how to live. They're telling us, listen, you don't need your guns. I love this. Our grenade launcher, this is a real thing. I don't know where it was. I think it's Baltimore, somewhere like that. Somebody submitted legislation to make illegal grenade launchers on, and I'm just saying this, I'm quoting them, assault rifles. They literally did that. Civilians can't own grenade launchers, right? You know that, right? It's already illegal, right? So, you know, if you want name on legislation that makes you look like a hero, well, try one that doesn't make you expose you as an idiot. I'd love that world that they live in, right? Tons of wealth. Everybody tell them how smart they are. And listen, remember, the assistants that are all feeding their egos, they want to keep their jobs. And most of those assistants live in that world. And I'm going to tell you, this Trump derangement syndrome beats all I've ever seen. I've never seen anything like it. I really haven't. I wasn't a huge fan of Donald Trump. Now, I read his book many, many years ago. Go lay down. Go lay down. We're not finished yet. You go lay down. Go lay down. Good girl. I wasn't a fan of Donald Trump, what he did. I mean, I watched a couple of episodes of The Apprentice, and I read his book many, many years ago. It was an excellent book. You can't argue with this man's success. You say, well, he's had bankruptcies. You can't be that successful. You know how many people have had massive bankruptcies during the course of their careers? Come on. Very common as a business tool, and it's a legal thing. You use the law. That's why you hire these lawyers at $685 an hour, is to avoid the $3,000 an hour cost. It's business. And if it's on the books, how do you think these congressmen, they gain such tremendous wealth in a very short period of time because they know stuff you don't know, and they act on it. And they use all the tools, all the estate planning tools that they don't want you to know about. They want you paying the taxes. They don't want to be paying the taxes. That's why they make health insurance laws for you that do not apply to them. I absolutely agree, and I've done lots of shows on this. They are not allowed to make a law that affects the majority of the population that doesn't affect them. You want to change the way health insurance is done for 1/6 of the economy and the entire population? Guess what? Then it's going to apply to you. Oh, retirement laws are going to change for regular people? Guess what? They're going to change for you. Don't get me started on that. My friends, we're in this place where we have got to understand what we're really dealing with here on the left. Now, as I said in the open of the show, I said, now I do the show without notes. So I don't know if I did this in the open or what. This is kind of, I have notes, but I don't even, I'm far off of what I was going to talk about. But I believe it was the beginning of this show that I talked about. I have friends. I mean, I have good friends I've known from grade school that are hard left. The place where I grew up, super liberal. And some of those people are some of the most wonderful people, most giving and generous and kind people you ever saw in your life, until you bring up President Donald Trump, until you bring up guns, until you bring up some of these things that are near and dear to us. It affects them. Emotionally, it affects them. And the people feeding that side of the tent don't care about facts. They want followers, not facts. You follow first, and then we worry about the facts. And if it's a fact you need to know, we'll make it up and tell you. It's reality, man. It's reality. You wonder why you're not hearing a lot about the senator from New Jersey? He's going down for this, man. He has violated so many laws, and there should be many more going down with him because they were complicit, trying to get deals done. What is it, Menendez? Whatever his name is. He's guilty as sin. He's dead to rights. They got him. You don't hear hardly anything on television about him. Now, we're darn near toward the end of the show, and some of you have commented like, I thought you only did 2-hour shows, but I can do as long a show as I want to do. As long as I have material for it, I can do it, or within the time limits that I have. So I just want to tell you that. I've got people texting me now saying, bro, man, you're over your 2 hours. It's okay. I'll only be a little bit longer. I want to get to this because I put it off last week, and I want to do this. And really, it may cost me 50% or more of my listeners when I did it. I lost thousands of listeners and followers when I spoke of this even lightly, when I had Jay Madler on, Janice Madler on, when she was on, her daughter Riley was healed with cannabis, and now she's able to live a very normal life. She'll be on the show. They'll both be on the show again. And I've since become friends with her and my good buddy Joe Konchnik, a scientist who really, I've been exposed to some of the greatest medical minds that are out there researching this, that I can tell you this with absolute confidence. This is the topic I'm going to talk about now, and I'm only going to talk about it for a little bit because I know you guys are getting tired of listening to me. But cannabis. Cannabis is the topic. Now, I want you to understand, I want you to be rest assured, I'm not going to try to convince you that you should use cannabis as a result of what I'm about to tell you. I don't hold a medical doctorate degree. I'm not an MD. I'm not a psych MD. Any of those things. I'm none of that. And I am not giving you medical advice. I'm giving you facts and my opinion on the legalization of cannabis. Now, a while back, there was a really big legislative push in the state of Delaware. And there were, I think, 4 or 5 bills at one time, which were horrible bills. But the left is in charge of Delaware, and that's just how it is. They're in charge by, enough of a majority that they run it. I mean, they run it. And they're running the state into the ground, if you want to know the truth. The fact of the matter of it is, these destructive bills, all at one time, they were all on the docket at one time. And so you've got a situation where it was oppressive. And there's a leader in a conservative movement that she started in the state of Delaware. She works tirelessly for conservative causes. Good human being, great mom, great wife. All of these things. I have a lot of respect for her. She's leading this thing. She has these meetings with people in all the different counties, and I went to that because I want to support her and her cause, and obviously want to be plugged in. Well, there was a discussion on House Bill 110, which had to do with marijuana. It had to do with, now I don't even like to say, I certainly don't say pot. I don't even like to say marijuana. I like to say cannabis because that's what it is. Marijuana was a made-up name to make cannabis into some awful thing. There's not. I'm going to give you some facts here. I'm telling you, this is what I wrote to this person. Because during the meeting, there was a lot of discussion, and these are conservative, mostly Christian people, and they're like, oh, this is terrible. They're going to turn everybody into potheads. It's the stoner bill was the nickname for it. That's what we're calling this bill. And I like to be accurate on things. I don't like to just rant and rave on something I don't know anything about. Makes me look even stupider, and I don't want that. I should have said more stupider. I was going to do that, but I don't, So I said, I abstained from calling to register opposition on House Bill 110. This is a letter that I wrote privately to her, but now I'm sharing it with how many of her folks are still listening. I abstained from calling to register opposition on House Bill 110 because after decades of intense academic and societal research in the United States and Israel on the topic of medical cannabis, hemp, CBD, and the cultivation crop and resource, I cannot support your stance on House Bill 110. In fact, I am currently a medical cannabis card holder in the state of Delaware. You guys know I've been in a terrible car crash, sustained terrible injuries, brain injury, all these things, bad situation, just super bad situation. I tried everything else. Nothing else worked. Literally, they tried to shove pharmaceuticals down my throat. I would take them. They wouldn't do anything at all but wreck my life. We're talking opiates here. We're talking heavy-duty stuff. Terrible side effects, all this stuff. That wasn't in the letter, but let me go on and go. Well, I understand this House Bill 110 is regarding only cultivation, manufacturing, and retail sales of cannabis. I respectfully do not concur with the conservative assessment of the bill as presented, as my research findings are diametrically opposed as to the assumptions you present. Now, let me say this. You understand that I'm Reverend Dr. Sean Michael Greener, right? You understand that I'm known nationally as the Ninja Pastor. That I speak to crowds large and small over this country. I speak to millions of people every week as a conservative Christian. You get that, right? As a pastor. Now, I've never put myself out there to be perfect. In fact, I am so wildly far from perfect, you'd just be amazed. But the fact of the matter is this. Well, I've got my hurts, habits, and hang-ups just like anybody else does, maybe even more. For me to come out and say this to this person, privately albeit, that look, this is reality. I'm a card holder, and I disagree with your assessment. Let me go on and say, This is back to the letter. I find the abuse of alcohol to be an immense and pervasive detriment to society, and having been so for many decades, alcohol-based drinks are more and more being presented as sodas and fruity drinks, yet no one seems to raise ire with the manufacturers, with the accusation of targeting the youth with the equivalent of cannabis edibles. Why? Because alcohol is illegal for anyone under the age of 21 in the state of Delaware to purchase, possess, or ingest. There are laws governing this for both teens and parents. As such, these laws are to encourage right behavior and to discourage illegal behavior. The difference is alcohol is acceptable from a societal perspective. Now, there are many Christians who claim alcohol was not approved in biblical times and that wine was much weaker then, and that they are, and those accusations or estimations are patently and historically incorrect. Wine in the Hebrew culture was not only commonly ingested in all of culture, but it was and is considerably stronger than most non-Hebrew wines available today. Do I drink alcohol? Rarely. Rarely. But usually no. Though it is legal and it is scripturally acceptable. The Bible says wine, take a little wine and make your heart gladder, but don't be drunk with wine. But I find no benefit, only a detriment to society at large, the abuse of alcohol. However, it is not alcohol that ruins families, but the people who abuse alcohol who ruin families, except for those who drink wine very moderately. Why should they be penalized for those who do not, in moderation, do what is so obviously condoned in Scripture? Well, the answer is they shouldn't. Wine is legal because it's considered to be acceptable. The communion blood of Christ, if accurately presented, is wine, not grape juice. Why? Because almost all products of the grape in biblical times in Israel were fermented, and traditionally known grape juice did not exist. One might mistakenly make the argument that they had to do that because without fermentation the fruit of the vine would spoil. This too would be incorrect. Now, hemp and marijuana were prohibited by the Marijuana Tax Act in 1937, and because the plants are related, hemp was also outlawed along with marijuana. What was the real reason this happened? In the 1930s, hemp became a direct competitor to paper, petroleum, steel, and literally thousands of other products. Who funded these actions? William Randolph Hearst, the owner of the most acreage of woodlands in the United States of America. Wood is required to make paper. But guess what? He also manufactured paper. Hemp was poised to cost Hearst billions. Lamont DuPont, a U.S. Secretary of Treasury, and the U.S. Secretary of Treasury, Andrew Mellon, of the banking Mellons, were all very highly motivated to destroy the American market for hemp and related products because it would have cost them billions. Money. How long does it take to grow a tree, folks? Many, many years. 90 days from the time you plant the hemp plant to the time you harvest it. Just a tidbit. Now you understand what the deal is. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. By the way, most of these American industrialists also owned controlling interest in alcohol manufacturing, pharmaceutical companies, and over-the-counter drugs that they were already manufacturing without hemp or cannabis. Now, as to cannabis, hemp, and derived products, it is a false and unsupported with academic rigor the statement that consumption of cannabis is a gateway activity. What makes consumption of cannabis addictive and a precursor to experimentation with harder drugs is the adulteration of cannabis with other synthetic drugs such as heroin, fentanyl, or PCP. Cannabis, organically grown and regulated, such as that is already occurring under the supervision of retired Delaware State Trooper Mark Lally in Delaware's medical marijuana program, is totally organic and unadulterated. Now, there are strains of cannabis which contain higher THC versus CBD, which is cannabidiol. Are there ones that have more THC versus CBD? Yes, just as there are wine coolers versus vodka. Now, you might make the assumption that I'm mixing my advocation of medical cannabis with that of recreational use of marijuana by any and all citizens. This also would be incorrect. However, I come to the place where so much misinformation is being disseminated as truth, I cannot in good faith stand against what is patently incorrect. Number one, hemp, its use and cultivation is a greater good for society and not a detriment. Hemp is a crop that can be grown from seed to maturity in just 90 days, can be planted every 90 days without rotation because it improves the soil with every planting instead of depleting the soil as modern food crops do. And as my good friends Joe Konchnick, who will eventually be a guest on this show, and Jay Madler, expert on cannabis like nobody you've ever seen, reminded me, hey, did you know one of the greatest things at taking the toxic metal out of soil is a hemp plant? Cannabis can pull heavy metals out of the soil in 90 days. Now, guess what? You would never want to consume anything that's been grown in heavy metal soil, because why? Because now the heavy metals have been pulled out of the soil and put into the plant. But you know where this would be useful? Guess where it would be useful? How about a completely non-toxic way to detoxify some of the grounds that have heavy metal in it? Now, let me ask you this. What if you took those same hemp plants that were planted in pure, organic, clean soil, properly watered, fed, and given sunlight, and you were to break that down and give them in the proper doses to human beings who are suffering from toxic amounts of heavy metals in their body? What would happen? Guess what? That's right. Their bodies would be detoxified with absolutely zero side effects of the heavy metals. Let's go on. This is back to my letter. Hemp can be used to create some of the most sustainable and long-lasting and highly useful products with a far more beneficial impact on the environment and society in general while creating no unused waste. Hemp can actually be used to make the body of automobiles and is 10 times stronger and lighter than steel and never rusts. From hemp, CBD can be extracted to provide hemp or CBD oil with no euphoric impact on the user. There are no known side effects of the use of CBD on the user, yet there are countless benefits in patients suffering with many different maladies, including but not limited to pain control, mood regulation, immune boosting, memory and cognition improvement, inflammation reduction and prevention, nerve and neurological balance and function, treatment of PTSD, stopping of seizures and epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, and not only helping with the treatment of cancer, but also, as is being done in Israel right now, the healing of cancer. Migraines, fibromyalgia, anxiety, depression, all being dramatically impacted by the proper use of CBD and cannabis. Look, the list goes on, and as you labeled it, the Stoner Bill does not fairly or accurately represent the truth of proper use of CBD and cannabis. Now, here's where it gets personal. This is me, and you're going to hear some of this stuff for the first time. I suffer from life-threatening idiosymptomatic hypertension, extraordinary debilitating chronic pain, as well as traumatic brain injury and debilitating physical deficit, for which medical doctors were all too eager to prescribe me mountains of pharmaceuticals which brought no relief, and even more insurmountable mountains of side effects. CBD and medical marijuana, if properly administered, were and are life-changing for me and those that love and care for me. You might at this point be asking, how? The endocannabinoid system regulates and balances our overall system. Modern drugs and substances upset that same system. The endocannabinoid system works while we sleep to, and while we are awake to heal and reset our balance, which is centered in our endocannabinoid system. Synthetic drugs destroy the same system while wreaking havoc on our overall health. Cannabis and CBD do all the above without a single side effect. You might be asking at this point, how? Look, it balances our system. That's how. As to cannabis for recreational use, cannabis in its organic, unadulterated, and regulated form is far safer and cheaper as an alternative for many medicines, let alone commonly accepted intoxicants such as alcohol, caffeine, or nicotine. In addition, it is illegal for those under the prescribed and regulated age to consume cannabis in any form unless they are being treated for approved conditions. Alcohol is consumed by teens on a daily basis. No useful or medically beneficial justification for alcohol has ever been found, yet it is still legal and societally acceptable. Why? Because people with money to lose are behind the alcohol industry. Youngsters are not permitted to use alcohol, and yet many do. Now, why would cannabis be any different or more harmful or less regulated? I can tell you this. As someone who was on the front lines of the lie called the drug war, we lost the drug war a long time ago. I can also tell you this. I would far rather deal with someone under the influence of actual unadulterated marijuana than alcohol anytime. Back to medicine. Before Prohibition, medicines derived from the cannabis plant occupied 20 pages of the physician's desk reference pharmacopoeia. Outside the United States today, countries such as Israel have allowed medical, and I think this is amazing, by the way, have allowed medical researchers to rediscover these drugs and develop new ones, and the results are outstanding. As I stated regarding hemp above, cannabis is also a far cheaper alternative for thousands of other products. Paper, rope, clothing, plastics, building materials, auto parts, soaps, oils, foods, makeup, animal feed, insulation. Popular Mechanics actually had an article in the 1920s about the new wonder plant that had thousands of uses. However, before they could publish, progressives at the time, who had nobody to fight after the alcohol prohibition ended, started marijuana prohibition. The DuPont company funded much of the smear campaigns against hemp and cannabis because hemp as an alternative to nylon is by comparison incomparable. Now, because of the self-interest and greed of a few extremely wealthy and influential people, marijuana is a Schedule I drug, right next to LSD. Federally, I'm saying. While more dangerous compounds like alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, aspirin, cocaine, as presented in medical products, methamphetamine, etc., are perfectly legal. Many conservatives cited support for fighting HB 110, youth marijuana use. They say when Colorado legalized marijuana in 2012, around 10% of youth ages 12 to 17 were considered current marijuana users compared to 7.55% nationally. Now, after legalization, use among youth was 39% higher than the national average. Drug-related suspensions, expulsions in schools increased 32%. Bill sponsors are naive to think that they can sponsor the mass production and promotion of marijuana and simultaneously keep it out of the hands of children. You say, well, you're arguing against yourself. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Hang in there. Think about this. When something is illegal, people don't as readily admit to using the substance. Now, when you make it legal, they do more readily acknowledge use. Of course, drug-related suspensions were higher after legalization. However, the key word here is legal. Is it still legal for teens to possess or use marijuana? So who is really failing society here? During a meeting with conservatives last week, a nice gentleman stated that he was an alcoholic for many years, and he would be detrimentally impacted if cannabis was legalized because it could lead to not only his, but many other recovering alcoholics' relapse. I find this disturbing as a justification because it is tantamount to abdicating our own personal responsibility and accountability for our own actions and choices, which is diametrically opposed to where we as conservatives stand. I don't support abortion, and it's legal. I don't support the abuse of tobacco, and it's legal. I don't support the abuse of alcohol, but it too is legal. To tether cannabis consumption and alcoholics is tethering apples and aardvarks. I respect others' opinions as well as others' proclivities, and I will continue to do so. However, I invested many years in studying this subject long before I personally benefited from the proper use of cannabis in my own life. I don't expect to convince you or even sway you at all as to the use, cultivation, or research of cannabis and CBD, but I think most folks' subject matter expertise in this is significantly lacking. Though in our own warm audience of Christian conservatives, this is not an issue, within those who are well informed based on facts, not feelings, those bias that drive your stance on this topic become very clear. Most folks do not want to be uninformed or uninformed or biased in a particular way. Thus this long letter. God bless you. And I sent the letter. Now let me say this about that. Obviously you've been listening for a long time and I appreciate it. Y'all are awesome. Now, I said all that to say this. I said kind of this in when I started this is I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm not trying to say, hey, you should do this. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm telling you right now, had it not been for medical cannabis or CBD and CBD, you've heard me mention him many, many times. Dr. Jeffrey Marangel in Allentown and Schuylkill Haven, Pennsylvania, the man saved my life more than one time. Had it not been for his extremely extraordinary and alternative and advanced and amazing care that he's provided for me and my family over the years, I'm telling you, I wouldn't be here today. Listen, I've taken every high blood pressure pill you can imagine, 30-some. And I've taken 6 at one time of the maximum dose. Didn't touch it. I go into him. He mixes some stuff up. I go in fetal position, deadly high blood pressure. And I walk out and I drive the car home and eat a big meal. Now, that was before my crash, obviously. I'm saying all that to say this, that he and Dr. Tracy Hudson down at Henlopen Chiropractic in Lewis, Delaware, and Dr. Trent Camp in Middletown, Delaware, and Trent Ryan, awesome care. Awesome care. Used to be Concord Pain and Spine. I don't know what they're called now. Up on 202. Awesome care. I'm telling you, I had an opera with them. And this is nothing against the medical doctors. I have a lot of medical doctors who listen to this show, who are great friends of mine. Dr. Bonnie, great friend of mine, and she's an awesome doctor, been a doctor for many, many years. And they're awesome people and good people. But I also have a friend who was my physician, my primary physician for 17 years, who said, look, I can't sign this medical marijuana form for you to go investigate this further because I don't want to get sued. I don't want to, I don't know anything about it. Well, guess what? Regular medical doctors, don't kid yourself. The pharmacy world, the pharmaceutical world, that drives everything. Think I'm kidding? I'm not. I'm not at all. Here's the thing, folks, and I don't mean this glibly. I don't. My friends, CBD and medical cannabis properly administered is saving people's lives. There are parents watching their children die because they can't get cannabis where they live because it's illegal. I've seen children, 6-year-olds, who have 400 seizures a day. Now, I have seizures. That's one of the things that I have. It's no fun. It's no fun at all. But I'm going to tell you something. If you were to tell me that you don't want to give a 6-year-old life-saving, natural care with no side effect because of your stigma, there was a time where I would say that, and I would say it smugly and self-righteously, and I would say that standing tall, almost 6'4" and 240 pounds, and I would say those things, and I'd be proud of myself. And I would say, I'll stand in your way, or I'll remove you from their way. You're not going to stand in the way of a child being saved, or even being able to live out the rest of their lives in peace and less pain. I'm going to have Jay Madler back on the show, and she's going to share things with you that are going to blow your mind, and they're absolute fact. I've looked into the eyes that she talks about. She's looked into the eyes. I'm telling you, I'm now exposed to some of the greatest minds and greatest scientists as it relates to this. And the things I'm seeing, let alone hearing about, the things I'm seeing are extraordinary. They are extraordinary and unforgettable. No, I used to say that, and I used to say it with a lot of self-righteousness and say, I'll remove you from the way from this little child getting what they need. But I thought, how hypocritical of me. Here I'm a medical marijuana patient, medical cannabis patient, and I'm keeping that quiet. So that's why I did this show. I wanted to lay it out for you in a way that provides you some background. I encourage you to do your own research. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. I have a doctorate, but I'm not a doctor, a medical doctor, and I'm not giving you medical advice. And I don't know if cannabis or CBD can help you. I don't know these things. I don't know your situation, and like I said, I'm not a doctor, and I can't testify to it. But I can tell you, get a hold of some people that know. Arm yourself with facts. Don't keep moving through life in this way that, for whatever reason, I don't know why people do it. I really don't. I don't know why people do it. Know the facts. You know, it's the same way this shooting and the NFL and all these other things that are going on. Learn some facts. Invest yourself. Don't just study. Don't just put into your mind the things that keep you on the right side. In other words, confirmation bias. You only talk to people you know will agree with you. Listen, in my preaching, my speaking, and public speaking all around the country, I tell people right up front, listen, you may not agree with what I have to say, and that's okay. It's okay. We can still go out to a restaurant afterwards and we can have a good meal together. And we can laugh and we can help each other out. And I can help you bear your burdens. And there's some gifts and talents that I have that I'll give freely to you. And maybe there's some things and some ways that you can help me in my life. You don't have to fight all the time. But I'm going to tell you this, as a warfighter and as a person who has seen the darkest of the dark, I am going to tell you, there are times where it comes down to, no, we're not going to do what you want to do just because you think it'll work, because you want it to work, just because you believe society works that way. It doesn't work that way. It's not rainbows and unicorns. Folks, I have so appreciated you listening today. It means the world to me. I say this to you all the time, and I mean it every time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time. If you are so empowered and you have plenty of funds to pay your light bill and then some, and you want to contribute to what we're doing, you go to theninjapastor.com or drshawngreener.com. You go over to donate. It goes through PayPal. It's extremely safe. I selected them because I tested them, and they came out super safe on that. Any amount helps. It all goes to doing what we do. If that's your thing, then I appreciate it. If you want to send us a note, if you want to just click on like or send us a rating, do a rating on our app. If you want to do a rating on our show, on iTunes or wherever it is you're listening, please do that. Write something out. It's awesome. It makes all the difference in the world. Thank you so much for joining me. You guys mean the world to me. And again, God bless you. Join us on Sunday. We're going to have something really, really fascinating for you. If you've missed any of these shows, it's free of charge. You just get the app, the Android app or the iPhone app, or if you don't listen on a smartphone, you don't have a smartphone, I put out the Spreaker app or Spreaker website where you can find me. But if you go to Spreaker, SPREAKER.com/The Ninja Pastor, that will show you. Or you go to Spreaker and then search for The Ninja Pastor, you'll find me. And then you can listen. But you can listen to any show free of charge at any time. And it's completely free. So listen, thank you for joining me. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for fighting the good fight. I don't know how many people from outside the country are listening now. I know we had hundreds of thousands from other countries when we were Blog Talk Radio, and I assume that many of those came over. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your prayers and all of the things that you do when this big thing happened in Vegas. Listen, we'll get to the bottom of it. Make no mistake. I don't think we have a president that's going to just take a head nod and a little nose tilt for an answer. That's where I think we've been blessed by God to have this guy. And if you're an anti-Trump person, you're a never-Trumper, give the guy a chance. Look past the crudeness, the rough Manhattan businessman guy. Keep looking through. Keep looking through. We can win this thing if we all come together. If we don't, we're doomed. Thank you for listening to The Ninja Pastor and Collision of Faith and Politics. God bless you.